What happens after we die? It's the question that has quietly hovered over us, whispered by the winds of time, since the moment we gained awareness. It's a question wrapped in the very nature of human existence. The moment we are born, we are already moving toward death, and in that inevitability, we find both a profound sense of peace and an overwhelming sense of dread. This question, it's timeless, and it's a mystery that binds all of humanity together, regardless of the path we walk or the answers we believe in. No matter where we stand on the spectrum of belief, we all share one common thread. None of us truly know what lies beyond this life. We spend so much of our time focused on the life we live, chasing after fleeting moments, seeking meaning, building connections. But when the time comes, when we're faced with the end, where do we go? What happens to the essence of who we are? The thoughts, the emotions, the memories that make us us? When we leave this world, do we leave ourselves behind, or do we carry something of us forward, something beyond the grasp of our understanding? For some, death is the end, full stop. There is no continuation. The soul, if it exists at all, dissolves into the vast, impersonal void of nothingness. The body returns to the earth, broken down into its simplest components, just another cycle in the unyielding machinery of nature. This is the most straightforward, perhaps the most comfortable answer for many. It's finite, it's predictable, it's the closing of a door, and the world moves on without us. But is it that simple? Let's slow down for a moment and think about this. If death is truly the end, then why do we fear it so much? If it's simply a return to the void, a final step into nothingness, why does it leave such a deep, inexplicable unease in the hearts of nearly every person? Why is there something inside us that rebels against the very thought of it? Could it be that deep down, we suspect that there is more to it than just an end? Take a moment, allow yourself to really feel this. The idea of nothingness. The abyss, it's uncomfortable, isn't it? The very thought of ceasing to exist forever, without trace, without memory, without meaning, it's something we can't quite fully grasp. This terror of oblivion is so universal, it transcends cultures, religions, and philosophies. And so we search for answers. We try to make sense of it. We cling to the hope that death is not the end, but just a transition, a passing from one existence to another. Perhaps that's where the mystery truly begins. The idea of transformation. Could it be that death isn't an end, but rather a profound change? What if death is not about fading away, but about moving on into something beyond our earthly understanding? A transformation that transcends the physical world and carries us into another state of being, one that we can't begin to fathom in our current form. In many cultures, there are stories of an afterlife, a place where the soul journeys after death, either to be judged or to find eternal rest. Some say that we ascend to a paradise where we are reunited with those we loved, living in peace forever. Others have a darker view, an underworld, a place of suffering, or perhaps something in between. But these are just stories, aren't they? Comforting stories, terrifying stories. Some of them offer hope, others give us warning. But no matter how often we hear these tales, none of us can truly say for certain what happens when we die. Now, consider the possibility that we are not meant to know. What if the answer to this question, the deepest, most elusive question of all, is something that cannot be understood by human minds? What if death is a passage that exists outside the realm of our understanding, something that transcends logic and reason? What if the nature of existence itself and the journey we take beyond life is simply beyond our comprehension? But then there's the possibility that there is no grand destination at all. What if, after we die, we simply disappear as if we were never here? Our consciousness, our sense of self, gone, just another fading memory in the vast ocean of time. Would that make our lives meaningless? Would all our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, our connections be reduced to nothing? And if so, would it matter? Think about it. In a world governed by time, we are constantly measuring, counting, marking the seconds, the minutes, the years. But time itself is so elusive, isn't it? It's something we can feel, but we cannot see. And when we die, is it time that ends for us? Or is it something more, something we can't yet understand? What happens to time itself when we die? Does it simply continue on without us, as if we never existed? Or is time, in some strange way, affected by our absence? Is the very flow of time altered when we leave this world? Some people believe that death is merely a return to a greater consciousness, to a place where we can finally understand the mysteries of the universe. Is this true? Could it be that death is not a dark void, but a place of revelation, where we finally see the truth of our existence, of all existence? Is death simply a part of the cycle, a step on the journey toward enlightenment or understanding? And then there are those who believe in reincarnation, the idea that after we die, we return to the world in another form, another body. The soul, or the essence of who we are, is reborn into a new life, and the cycle begins again. But is this possible? How could our consciousness, our very being, be transferred from one life to another? Would we retain memories of our past lives, or would we be born anew, as though we were someone entirely different? And if we don't remember who we were, are we truly the same person in the next life? Or are we simply a new version of ourselves, a different story in the grand tapestry of existence? If reincarnation is real, then what happens to the lives we live now? Are they part of a grand, eternal cycle, one that continues forever, in some form or another? Do we have a choice in this cycle? Can we break free from it, or are we doomed to repeat the same experiences over and over until we learn whatever it is we're meant to learn? Some philosophers have suggested that perhaps death is a form of escape, an escape from the limitations of this physical world, from the cycle of life and death, from the confines of the body. In this view, death is not something to fear, but something to look forward to, a chance to leave behind the struggles, the suffering, the pain, and to enter into a state of pure peace. But is that what death is? Is it peace, or is it simply another mystery, another unknown waiting to be explored? And still, there are others who believe that death is not a transition at all, but simply a return to the void, the nothingness from which we came. If this is true, then what does it mean for us as individuals? Are we nothing more than fleeting moments in time, here 1 second and gone the next? Our lives no more significant than the passing of a cloud in the sky? Could it be that the answer to this question lies not in the understanding of what happens after we die, but in the understanding of life itself? Perhaps life is simply a journey, a fleeting, precious experience that we are given, one that we should cherish while we have it. Perhaps, when we die, we simply return to the great unknown, to the vast, infinite mystery that surrounds us. And perhaps, in that unknown, we will find answers, or perhaps we will simply find peace. As you reflect on these possibilities, let yourself be absorbed in the mystery that exists in the silence, in the uncertainty, in the very act of wondering. Death is the question, and we, in our search for meaning, are the questioners. But maybe that's enough. Perhaps, in our wondering, we find the answers we're meant to find, not in the certainty, but in the journey itself. Why do we dream? We spend about a third of our lives asleep, yet the moments we experience while dreaming remain some of the most mysterious and profound aspects of our existence. In that quiet, dark place where our bodies rest, our minds come alive. We journey to strange lands, encounter unfamiliar faces, relive moments from the past, or even create entire worlds from nothing. But why? Why does our mind do this, night after night? And more intriguingly, what does it all mean? It's easy to dismiss dreams as just random thoughts, the mind's way of processing the day's events. But if we look a little deeper, the question grows more perplexing. If dreams are just the mind cleaning out the clutter, why do they feel so real? Why do we often wake up with a sense that we've just experienced something important, something that's somehow connected to our waking life? What if dreams aren't just a side effect of sleep, but a deeper, more complex phenomenon, something we don't yet fully understand? Let's take a step back and think about sleep itself. When we fall asleep, our bodies relax, our consciousness begins to fade, and we drift into a state where the rules of reality no longer seem to apply. It's in this space, somewhere between wakefulness and unconsciousness, that our minds come alive with vivid, strange imagery and emotions that sometimes feel more intense than anything we've experienced while awake. What is happening during this time? Why does our mind produce these stories, these scenarios, these bizarre worlds? Some scientists believe that dreams are nothing more than the brain's way of organizing memories, a kind of house cleaning for the mind. When we sleep, the theory goes, the brain sorts through the experiences of the day, filing them away in our memories, and in the process, it creates dreams. But if this is true, why do some dreams feel so strange, so disconnected from our real lives? Why do they sometimes seem to tap into something deeper, something but outside the realm of the ordinary? Perhaps dreams are more than just a mental housekeeping process. Perhaps they are a window into something greater. There are many theories about what dreams might be, some more grounded in science, others more speculative, even mystical. Some believe that dreams serve as a bridge between our conscious and unconscious minds, allowing us to access parts of ourselves that we are not aware of in our waking lives. In this view, dreams can be seen as messages, hints, or symbols from the unconscious, offering insights into our deepest fears, desires, and unresolved conflicts. But if dreams are messages from the unconscious, what are they trying to tell us? And why do they often seem so difficult to understand? Is it possible that we are all receiving guidance, information, or wisdom through our dreams, if only we knew how to decode it? Take a moment and think about your own dreams. Do you ever find yourself in a familiar place only to realize that something is slightly off? The room feels wrong, the people feel distant, or the situation seems just a little too strange. It's as if the dream is trying to tell you something, but the message is hidden just beyond your reach. These kinds of dreams often feel incredibly vivid, almost like waking experiences. Could they be an invitation to explore something deeper, something that our waking minds simply can't comprehend? But there's another layer to this mystery, one that goes beyond the psychological or neurological explanations. Some cultures and spiritual traditions believe that dreams are a doorway to another realm, a space where we can communicate with spirits, receive guidance from higher beings, or even travel to other worlds. In these traditions, dreams are not seen as random or meaningless, but as powerful tools for personal growth, spiritual awakening, or divine communication. Could it be that our dreams are tapping into something beyond ourselves, into a collective consciousness, a shared experience of the universe? What if, when we dream, we are not just experiencing fragments of our own thoughts and memories, but are connecting to something far greater, something timeless, universal, and beyond the reach of our rational minds? And what about lucid dreaming, the ability to become aware of and control your dreams? Lucid dreamers often describe their experiences as a kind of heightened awareness, where they are conscious within the dream, aware that they are dreaming, and sometimes able to direct the course of the dream. Could this state of awareness be a glimpse into a different level of consciousness, one that exists beyond the limitations of the physical world? What does it mean to be aware of your own dream? To step outside of the usual flow of time and space, and to control the events that unfold before you. But even if we accept that dreams may offer us insights into our unconscious minds or even higher realms, there's still a more unsettling possibility. What if dreams are not just a reflection of our inner world, but a simulation, a world of their own, existing independently from our waking lives? Could it be that when we dream, we are not just accessing hidden parts of ourselves, but are actually living an entirely different existence, one that unfolds as real as the world we wake up to every morning? This idea of dreams as a separate reality has fascinated philosophers and scientists for centuries. Some have suggested that dreams might not be confined to the mind at all, but are instead a form of parallel existence, where we are living out alternate versions of ourselves or exploring parallel worlds. Could it be that dreams offer us a glimpse into other timelines, into the lives we might have lived, or the versions of ourselves that exist in another reality? As you think about this, let's pause for a moment. Take a deep dive into the very essence of your dreams. Close your eyes, if you will, and recall a recent dream you had. Maybe it was vivid, maybe it was strange, maybe it left you with a lingering feeling, like it was trying to tell you something, but you just couldn't put your finger on it. Where did you go in that dream? Who did you meet? What emotions did you experience? Did it feel like something you were meant to understand? Or was it just a fleeting, disconnected series of images? Now, consider this. If dreams are indeed a portal into another world, what does that say about the nature of reality itself? Could it be that we are living in multiple realities at once, experiencing life through different lenses, different dimensions, all interconnected? What if dreams are just another layer of existence, one that we don't fully comprehend, but that is just as real as the waking world? We are only scratching the surface of the mystery here. The more we ponder, the deeper the question becomes. And perhaps that's the point. Perhaps the reason we dream, the reason we are drawn to explore these hidden realms of our minds, is not to find a definitive answer, but to embrace the mystery itself. Dreams are a reflection of our curiosity, our desire to understand the unknown, our willingness to venture into the depths of the mind, no matter how strange or unsettling they may be. In the end, maybe that's the beauty of it. Dreams are not meant to be understood, not fully. They are meant to be experienced, to be felt, and to remind us that there is always more to life than what we can see with our eyes. Dreams are a space where anything is possible, where the limits of the physical world dissolve, and where we can explore the infinite possibilities of existence. So the next time you drift off to sleep, remember you are not just closing your eyes, you are stepping into another world, one that is as real and mysterious as the one you wake up to each day. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, your dreams hold the answers to questions you haven't even thought to ask yet. Is time real? We live our lives by the ticking of clocks, by the turning of calendars, by the rhythm of day and night. Time is a constant, something we can all measure, something we can feel, and yet, despite its omnipresence, time remains one of the most elusive concepts we can think about. It seems so simple. Seconds pass, minutes stretch into hours, and those hours turn into days, then years. But when we stop and truly consider what time is, we realize that we don't really understand it at all. What is time, really? Is it a force that moves us, like gravity or magnetism? Or is it something far stranger, something that exists only because we perceive it that way? Time seems so real, doesn't it? Yet, if you really think about it, time is something we made up to make sense of our world. We created it in our minds as a way to measure change, to understand the progression of events, to mark the moments of our lives. But what if time doesn't exist in the way we think it does? What if it's just an illusion, a mental construct that doesn't have any real existence outside of our perception? Let's start by thinking about how we experience time. Time feels like it's moving forward, doesn't it? We move from one moment to the next, and the world around us seems to change with each passing second. But what if this sensation is nothing more than a trick of the mind? What if time doesn't actually flow, but is simply the way we experience a series of events in a linear sequence? What if everything that ever happens, past, present, and future, is already laid out, and what we perceive as the passage of time is just a mental illusion, a feeling that we get when we try to make sense of what's happening? Consider this. According to the theory of relativity, time is not the same for everyone. If you travel at a speed close to the speed of light, time actually slows down for you compared to someone who is standing still. This means that time isn't a constant, universal thing. It bends, it stretches, it changes depending on where you are, how fast you're moving, and how much gravity is pulling on you. So, if time can warp like this, can we really say that it's a fixed, objective part of the universe? Or is time something more fluid, more malleable than we've ever realized? If time can bend and twist in ways we don't fully understand, what does that say about our perception of the past, the present, and the future? We experience time as a series of moments that unfold one after the other. We think of the past as something that is behind us, the future as something that lies ahead, and the present as the fleeting moment we occupy. But what if all of these moments are interconnected, existing simultaneously in a way that we can't perceive with our senses? What if the past, present, and future are not separate, but all part of one continuous whole? This idea is reflected in some theories of time, like the block universe theory. According to this view, time is like a block, a vast, unchanging structure where the past, present, and future are all equally real. From this perspective, time doesn't flow. Instead, all moments in time are fixed, already existing, and we are simply experiencing them in the order that we perceive them. The moments that have passed, the moments we are living through now, and the moments that are yet to come, all of these moments exist together like frames in a movie. We don't move through time. Rather, we are like observers, experiencing one frame after another. But if time is really a block, if it's already set, then what about free will? What about our ability to make choices? If everything is already laid out, if all moments in time exist simultaneously, does that mean our choices are not our own? Are we simply playing out a predetermined script, acting out the roles we were always meant to play? Or is the experience of free will itself just another illusion, something our minds create to give us the feeling of control over our lives? These are unsettling thoughts, aren't they? The idea that time may not be what we think it is, the idea that our experience of it might be an illusion, or that our choices might already be made. It's a strange concept to wrap your mind around because time is such an integral part of our daily lives. It shapes everything we do, from the smallest task to the biggest decisions. But what if time, as we know it, is just a facade, a temporary experience we've created to understand the flow of events, when in reality, everything is happening at once? Now, let's consider something else, the possibility that time doesn't even exist, at least, not in the way we understand it. What if time is not a fundamental property of the universe, but instead an emergent phenomenon, a byproduct of how we experience the world? What if the flow of time is just a mental construct, a way for us to organize our perceptions, but that, at the deepest level of reality, time doesn't actually exist? In this view, the universe doesn't move through time. It simply exists in all its complexity, all at once. The movement of events, the changes in the world, the unfolding of the cosmos, they're not tied to time, but to something else entirely. This idea challenges everything we think we know. How could the universe exist without time? How could events unfold? How could we experience life without a timeline? It's hard to imagine a world without time, isn't it? It's so deeply embedded in our lives, it's hard to picture reality without it. But if we strip away time, What remains? Could it be that the experience of time is simply a limitation of our perception, a way for us to make sense of an otherwise timeless reality? And then there's the ultimate paradox. If time doesn't exist, how do we experience it? How do we measure it? Why do we feel the passage of time, even when it seems to bend and twist, and even when we know, deep down, that time itself might be a trick of the mind? Perhaps the answer lies in the fact that time, as we understand it, isn't something that exists on its own. It's something that is created by our consciousness. Time is a way for us to understand change, to mark the moments of our lives, to give structure to the chaos of the universe. But what if, without consciousness, time wouldn't exist at all? Could it be that our perception of time is a window into something even deeper, something beyond our understanding? A bridge between the physical world and the unknown? What if time is not just something we live through, but a clue to the nature of reality itself, a key to understanding the universe and our place in it? And so we return to the question, is time real? The answer, it seems, is more complicated than we first thought. Time may not be as simple as it seems. It may not be a fixed, constant thing, but a fluid, elusive concept that we can never fully grasp. But perhaps that's okay. Perhaps time, in all its mystery, is something we don't need to understand completely. Perhaps the true meaning of time isn't in the answer, but in the wonder of the question itself. Can we ever truly know what's out there? The night sky stretches above us, an endless expanse of stars, galaxies, and mysteries. Every night, we look up and wonder. We've always wondered what's beyond our reach. What's out there in the vast, infinite expanse of the universe, just waiting to be discovered? We've looked through telescopes, sent probes into space, and devised theories that stretch our imaginations. But the truth is, no matter how far we go, no matter how much we learn, there's always more, always something just beyond our grasp. Humanity has always been driven by curiosity, by the desire to know. Since the earliest days, we've sought to understand the world around us, to make sense of the unknown. We've asked questions, built machines, and created ideas, all in the hope of discovering the secrets that lie beyond the horizon. But the more we learn, the more we realize how little we know. Think about it. We live on a tiny planet orbiting an average star in an average galaxy in an infinite universe. We've spent centuries studying the stars, looking for signs of life, searching for answers to questions that have plagued us for as long as we can remember. And yet, every discovery we make only seems to open up more questions. The more we uncover, the more we realize how vast and incomprehensible the universe truly is. And that raises a chilling question. Can we ever truly know what's out there? Can we ever truly comprehend the vastness, the complexity, the sheer scale of the cosmos? When we look up at the stars, we see only a fraction of what's out there. We see the light from distant suns, the remnants of dead stars, the swirling arms of galaxies. But that light is old. The stars we see may have already burned out, their light traveling across the vastness of space for millions, even billions of years before it reaches our eyes. And who knows what we're missing? What lies beyond the reach of our telescopes, beyond the limits of our technology, beyond the edge of our understanding. Some believe that the universe is teeming with life, other civilizations, other beings, far more advanced than we are, waiting for us to find them. And yet, we haven't found them. Not yet. The silence is deafening. Could it be that we are alone in this vast, infinite universe, a tiny speck of life in a cosmic ocean, destined to live out our days without ever encountering another intelligence? Or is there something more? Something hidden just beyond our reach? The Fermi paradox captures this mystery perfectly. If the universe is so vast, so old, and so full of potential for life, why haven't we found any evidence of it? Where are the other civilizations? Are they out there, somewhere, just waiting for us to discover them? Or is there a deeper reason why we haven't encountered them yet? Is the universe silent, not because there is no life, but because life is too distant, too different, or perhaps even too fleeting to make contact? It's a sobering thought, isn't it? The idea that we might be alone, that the search for life might be an endless quest with no final answer. But even if we are alone in this vast universe, that doesn't make the search any less important. The pursuit of knowledge, the quest to understand the cosmos, is one of the most human things we can do. And even if we never find another civilization, even if we never learn the true nature of the universe, the act of searching is what gives our lives meaning. It reminds us that we are part of something greater, something mysterious, something that continues to unfold every day. But let's not forget that the very nature of what's out there is constantly changing. As our technology improves, as we send out more probes, more satellites, more instruments into the farthest reaches of space, we uncover more of the unknown. Yet, for every answer we find, there seems to be another question waiting just around the corner. We've learned so much, but there's so much more left to learn. The universe is vast, and with each discovery, we realize just how small we really are in the grand scheme of things. And then there's the possibility that what we know is only a fraction of the truth. The universe might be far stranger, far more complex than we can imagine. We think we understand the laws of physics, the principles of space and time, the nature of matter and energy. But what if we're wrong? What if there are forces, laws, dimensions, or realms that we don't yet know about, that we can't even begin to comprehend? What if the true nature of the cosmos is hidden from us, waiting for us to evolve, to expand our understanding, to develop new tools, new ways of thinking that will unlock the mysteries of the universe? It's humbling, isn't it, to realize that we might never fully understand what's out there. But perhaps that's part of the beauty of it all. The universe is infinite, and we are but a small part of it, yet we are capable of asking the big questions, of striving for answers, of exploring the unknown. It's this pursuit of knowledge, this thirst for understanding, that drives us to reach for the stars, to look beyond our world, and to dream of what might be out there. But in the end, maybe the question itself, can we ever truly know what's out there, is more important than the answer. Maybe it's the act of wondering, the curiosity that pushes us forward, that defines who we are. Perhaps we'll never fully understand the cosmos, never fully grasp the mysteries that lie beyond the stars. But that doesn't mean we should stop asking. That doesn't mean we should stop searching, because even in the vast silence of space, In the endless unknown, the search for truth, for understanding, for meaning, it's what makes us human. It's what makes us reach beyond the limits of our perception and touch the infinite. And perhaps in that search, we will find the answers we're looking for. Or perhaps we will find that the questions themselves are enough. After all, isn't it the questions that keep us moving forward, keep us wondering, keep us alive? Is there such a thing as free will? From the moment we wake up in the morning to the moment we fall asleep at night, we make choices. What to eat, where to go, who to talk to, what to think. Our entire lives seem to be a series of decisions, one after another. And yet, as we move through life, making these choices, one question lingers quietly in the background. Do we really have the freedom to choose, or is everything predetermined, governed by forces beyond our control? It's a question that has plagued philosophers, scientists, and thinkers for centuries. On the surface, it seems simple. We choose what to do. We have the power to act, to change, to make decisions that shape our lives. But when we dig deeper, we find that the answer is not so straightforward. Can we really make choices, or are we simply acting out roles in a world that has already set the stage for us? Consider this. Everything we do is influenced by countless factors: our upbringing, our environment, our biology, our experiences. From the moment we are born, we are shaped by the world around us. Our parents, our culture, our society, all of these things influence the decisions we make, the paths we must take, the beliefs we hold. But if our choices are influenced by so many external factors, can we truly say we are free to choose? Some scientists argue that free will is an illusion. They believe that everything we do is the result of chemical reactions in our brains, responses to stimuli, and the laws of physics. According to this view, our thoughts and actions are determined by our biology, by the neurons firing in our brains, by the environment we grew up in. In this sense, we are not truly free to choose. We are simply the product of our biology and experiences, reacting to the world around us. This is a sobering thought. If our choices are not really our own, if they are simply the result of the forces that shape us, then what does that mean for our lives? Are we just puppets, controlled by invisible strings, living out a script written long before we were born? But there's another side to the story. What if free will is real, but only to a certain extent? What if we are free to make choices, but those choices are constrained by our biology, our environment, and our circumstances? For example, we may be free to choose what to eat for dinner, but our choices are influenced by the options available to us, the food we enjoy, the money we have, and the culture we live in. In this view, our free will is not absolute. It's shaped by the world around us, but still, we have the power to choose within those limits. This raises another question. If free will exists, how much freedom do we really have? Can we ever truly break free from the constraints of our biology, our upbringing, our environment, or are we forever bound by the forces that shape us, making our choices only a reflection of those influences? Now, let's consider the deeper question. If free will is real and we are free to make choices, what does that mean for our responsibility? If we are truly free, then we are responsible for our actions, for the choices we make. But what if our choices are influenced by forces beyond our control, by genetics, by society, by our past experiences? How can we be held responsible for decisions that are, in a sense, predetermined by the world around us? It's a complex question, one that has no easy answer. On the one hand, we want to believe that we are free to choose, that our actions matter, that we can shape our own destiny. On the other hand, we know that we are not isolated beings, but are deeply connected to the world around us. Our choices are influenced by everything we've experienced, everything we've learned, everything that has happened to us. And in this sense, our freedom may be limited by the very forces that make us who we are. Take a moment to think about the choices you've made in your life. Were they truly your own? Were they the result of your free will? Or were they shaped by factors you didn't control? Maybe you grew up in a particular place with certain values, certain influences that shaped your choices. Maybe you're influenced by your genes, your personality, your emotions. Maybe, just maybe, the things you think of as your choices are not as free as you imagine. And yet, there is still something deeply human about the idea of free will. We like to believe that we have control over our lives, that we can change our paths, that we are the masters of our own destiny. This belief gives us a sense of power, a sense of agency, a sense that we can shape the world around us. It gives us the courage to make decisions, to take risks, to change. Without the belief in free will, life might feel like a series of predetermined events, a script that we're simply following with no way to break free. So maybe free will exists, but only in the way that we experience it. Maybe it's not absolute freedom, but a kind of freedom that is constrained by the world we live in. Maybe our choices are shaped by forces beyond our control, but still, we can choose. We can choose within the limits of our circumstances, and that in itself is a form of freedom. But here's the final thought to consider. If we are free, if we truly have the power to make choices, then how do we use that power? What do we do with the freedom we have? If our choices are real, if they matter, then how do we live our lives? Do we make choices that reflect our true selves, our deepest desires, our highest ideals? Or do we make choices that are influenced by the world around us, by what others expect of us, by what we think we should do? In the end, the question of free will may not have a simple answer. It may not be a question that can be fully answered, but maybe that's the point. Maybe the very uncertainty of free will is what makes it so powerful. It forces us to confront ourselves, to look at the choices we make, and to question whether we are truly free or whether we are simply reacting to the world around us. And in that questioning, perhaps we find the freedom to choose, to act, and to shape our own lives. Why do we fear the unknown? It's a question as old as humanity itself. From the earliest days of our existence, we've been driven by a deep need to understand the world around us. As children, we fear the dark corners of our rooms, the shadows that seem to hide secrets we cannot see. As adults, we fear the unknown in many forms, the future, the unfamiliar, the things we don't yet understand. But why does the unknown invoke such fear in us? Why do we fear what we cannot see, hear, or comprehend? The fear of the unknown is a primal instinct, one that has evolved within us over countless generations. Early humans had to be cautious of the unknown, for in the vast, untamed wilderness, danger often lurked in the unseen places. The dark forests, the uncharted waters, the hidden predators, these were the places where threats could appear without warning. For our ancestors, fear was a survival mechanism, a way to keep themselves safe in an unpredictable world. Those who feared the unknown were more likely to avoid dangerous situations, to stay alert, and to protect themselves from harm. In this sense, fear was a valuable tool, one that kept early humans alive. But as we've evolved, so too has our relationship with fear. While we no longer live in constant danger from wild animals or natural disasters, the fear of the unknown remains deeply embedded within us. It's no longer just the fear of physical danger, it extends to many areas of our lives. The fear of failure, the fear of the future, the fear of change, and perhaps the most pervasive fear of all, the fear of the unknown within ourselves. On a deeper level, the fear of the unknown may be tied to the fear of losing control. We live in a world that is predictable, or at least we like to think it is. We wake up, go to work, interact with people, and know, for the most part, what will happen. There is comfort in this predictability. It gives us a sense of control. But when we are faced with something unknown, something that we cannot plan for or understand, it shakes that sense of control. We feel vulnerable, exposed, and uncertain, and that vulnerability triggers fear. The unknown represents a loss of control, and it's this loss that we fear the most. Think about the ways we react when faced with uncertainty. When a new job opportunity arises, we fear whether we'll succeed or fail. When we think about the future, we fear what it holds. Whether it's the state of the world, the health of our loved ones, or our own mortality. We fear the unknown because it's unpredictable, and in its unpredictability, we feel powerless. And for many, that powerlessness is terrifying. But there's something more to this fear, something that reaches deep into the human psyche. It's not just the uncertainty that frightens us, it's also the possibility that the unknown holds something we cannot comprehend. We fear what we don't understand, and the unknown is often beyond our understanding. For centuries, we have sought to understand the mysteries of the universe, from the nature of consciousness to the existence of life beyond Earth. We fear what we cannot explain because, in a way, it threatens our understanding of reality itself. If the unknown can challenge our perception of the world, it means our reality is less stable than we would like to believe. This is especially true in times of crisis or change. When we are confronted with the unknown, whether it's a global pandemic, the breakdown of social order, or a personal tragedy, we feel as though the ground beneath us is shifting. The familiar patterns of life that once seemed so solid are no longer certain, and that instability brings fear. Fear of losing control, fear of the future, and fear of facing something we can't predict. It's this deep-seated fear that makes the unknown so unsettling because it threatens the very fabric of our lives. Interestingly, however, the fear of the unknown is not always something to be avoided. In many cases, it can be the catalyst for growth, learning, and discovery. Think about the great explorers, scientists, and thinkers throughout history. They ventured into the unknown, driven not by the absence of fear, but by the desire to understand, to push the boundaries of what was possible. The unknown was a challenge, but it was also an opportunity. The unknown represented the potential for new knowledge, for progress, for new frontiers. This is a key distinction. While the fear of the unknown often holds us back, it can also propel us forward. Fear can paralyze us, or it can motivate us to seek answers, to confront challenges, and to adapt. When we look at the unknown not as a threat, but as an opportunity, we begin to change our relationship with fear. Instead of being something to avoid, the unknown becomes something to explore. It becomes the space where creativity, innovation, and growth occur. But even in our desire to embrace the unknown, we must also acknowledge that fear will always be a part of the equation. It's natural to fear the things we don't understand, especially when they have the potential to change our lives in ways we can't predict. But rather than letting that fear control us, we can choose to engage with it. We can approach the unknown with curiosity, with wonder, and with the understanding that fear, in some form, will always be a companion on the journey. Perhaps the greatest lesson in all of this is that the fear of the unknown is not something to be eradicated, but something to be understood. Fear is not inherently bad. It's a part of being human. It's a reminder of our vulnerability, of our need for protection, and of the vastness of the world around us. The unknown will always be there, but how we choose to interact with it will shape our experience of it. So, the next time you feel that familiar pang of fear when confronted with the unknown, take a moment to pause and reflect. What does this fear mean? What is it teaching you? And most importantly, what would happen if you allowed yourself to explore the unknown instead of retreating from it? Perhaps, in embracing the fear, we can begin to unlock the potential that lies within the uncertainty. Perhaps, in facing the unknown, we can learn not just about the world, but about ourselves. What if the universe is a giant computer simulation and we're just data in the code? It's a thought that sounds more like science fiction than reality. But what if the universe we experience, the stars in the sky, the ground beneath our feet, the very thoughts we think, are all part of an elaborate simulation? What if everything, from the smallest atom to the vast expanse of space, is simply data being processed by a super advanced computer, and we, as conscious beings, are nothing more than lines of code? This concept isn't as outlandish as it might first appear. In fact, some of the most brilliant minds in physics and philosophy have proposed that the universe might be a simulation. The theory is known as the simulation hypothesis, and it suggests that all of our reality, everything we see, touch, and experience, could be the product of some higher intelligence running an incredibly sophisticated computer program. The idea began to take shape in modern discussions with the work of philosopher Nick Bostrom, who proposed a thought provoking argument. If it's possible for an advanced civilization to create simulations of conscious beings, and if such simulations are indistinguishable from real life, then statistically, it's far more likely that we are living in one of those simulations rather than being in the base reality of our own. Essentially, If civilizations eventually develop the technology to simulate entire universes with conscious minds, they may choose to run simulations of their ancestors or future generations. And in this scenario, the odds of being in the base reality, the one where we are truly the first and original beings, become extremely small. Let's break this down. Imagine a future civilization with computing power far beyond anything we can even imagine today. This civilization could create a simulation so detailed, so complex, that it would be indistinguishable from the real world. The beings within the simulation, including us, would experience it as though it's the only reality there is, unaware that they are part of a program. To them, the simulation would be as real as life itself. Every moment, every feeling, every thought would be as genuine as it appears. But why would a civilization create such simulations? Well, there could be countless reasons. Maybe they want to explore different historical scenarios, testing how their ancestors or future selves might have lived. Maybe they want to better understand the choices and behaviors of sentient beings, or perhaps the simulation serves as a way to preserve the consciousness of those who have passed. The reasons are endless, and while we may never know the true motivations behind such a simulation, the idea remains a chilling and fascinating one. If we accept this idea, it opens up a world of possibilities and paradoxes. For one, how would we ever know if we're living in a simulation? After all, if the simulation is sophisticated enough, there would be no way for us to detect it. Our sensory experience would feel completely authentic. The ground beneath our feet, the sky above, the sensations we experience, they would all seem absolutely real. And yet, what if it's all an illusion, just a highly convincing digital construct? This raises another unsettling thought. If the universe is a simulation, what happens when the simulation ends? What if the program is paused, shut down, or rebooted? What if the universe as we know it suddenly vanishes, without warning, without explanation? In the simulation, everything we know, everything we experience, could disappear in an instant. The very laws of physics, the structure of time and space, could all be rewritten or erased as if they were nothing more than temporary data in a computer. The concept of death, as we understand it, might not even apply. Instead of passing into an afterlife or fading into non existence, we could simply cease to exist within the program. Our consciousness would simply be deleted or overwritten. But here's the real kicker. If we are data in the code, does that mean we have no true control over our existence? Are our thoughts, emotions, and decisions just lines of code being executed by the program? If our entire reality is being simulated, is everything we think we know about ourselves nothing more than pre programmed responses to the world around us? What if our free will is an illusion and we are simply following the predetermined path laid out for us by the simulation? This idea challenges the very foundation of what it means to be human. Our sense of individuality, our belief in free will, our understanding of time, all of it could be reduced to mere code in a computer system designed by an intelligence far beyond our comprehension. And yet, within the simulation, we experience it all as real. We feel joy. We experience pain. We make choices. But what if those choices were never really ours to make? Perhaps even more disturbing is the possibility that there are multiple layers of simulations, each one nested inside another, like the layers of a digital Russian doll. Imagine a civilization that creates simulations of its own existence, and within those simulations, the simulated beings create their own simulations. Could we, as conscious beings in a simulation, be running our own simulations, unaware of the higher layers of reality? If we're living in a simulation, who is to say that the beings running it aren't themselves part of a larger, more complex simulation? There's also the possibility that the simulation is imperfect, that the program may glitch, or that errors in the code could cause distortions in our reality. These glitches might manifest as strange coincidences, deja vu, or moments when the world around us feels wrong. Could these glitches be signs that the program is malfunctioning, revealing cracks in the illusion? Or are they simply artifacts of a system so complex that we can't fully comprehend it? One of the most unsettling aspects of the simulation hypothesis is the idea that we could be nothing more than data, characters in a game, pawns in a larger experiment. Our memories, our experiences, our very consciousness could all be the product of code running in the background, executing algorithms that make us believe we are truly living, thinking beings. If this is the case, then the very nature of reality, of existence itself, becomes a question of computation. What if we are nothing more than the result of a vast, incomprehensible program running on a machine that we can't even imagine? And yet, despite the terrifying implications of this idea, there's something oddly comforting about it. If we are living in a simulation, it means that reality, however strange or uncertain it may seem, is still a creation. It's still a construct, one that we can learn to navigate, to understand, and perhaps even to control. The universe may not be random or chaotic after all. It could be a system with rules, with logic, and with a purpose. It's a system that we're a part of, one that we may one day come to understand fully. So, the next time you look up at the stars or ponder the mysteries of existence, ask yourself, could this all be a simulation? Could we be data trapped in the code of an unimaginable program? And if so, does that change how you see the world around you? Maybe, just maybe, understanding that we are part of a grand cosmic simulation gives us the power to embrace our reality in a whole new way, to play the game, to write our own code, and to explore the possibilities that lie within the illusion. What is the nature of consciousness? It's the one thing we all share, the very core of what makes us us. But for all our understanding of the world around us, consciousness remains one of the greatest mysteries we face. We know what consciousness feels like, but we still don't know what it is, or, more importantly, where it comes from. It's the essence of who we are, yet it's something we can't touch, measure, or fully explain. How can we have something so real, so fundamental to our existence, yet so elusive, so intangible? Every moment of our lives, we are aware. We experience the world through our senses. We think, we feel, we reflect. But where does this awareness come from? Why do we possess it? Why are we aware of ourselves, of our thoughts, of our surroundings? And why do we experience this sense of being, this constant stream of thoughts, emotions, and perceptions that make up our consciousness? Some argue that consciousness is a product of the brain, a byproduct of its complex interactions. The neurons firing, the electrical impulses racing through the synapses. Could it be that all of our thoughts, our sense of self, is just the result of these physical processes? This is the materialistic view of consciousness, one that says the mind is simply a machine, an intricate series of mechanisms that create the experience of awareness. But if consciousness is just the brain doing its job, why does it feel so personal, so subjective? Why does it feel like we are aware rather than simply having awareness? In fact, the more we learn about the brain, the more we realize how little we understand. Neuroscience has made incredible strides in understanding how the brain works, how memories are stored, how emotions are processed, how our bodies respond to stimuli. But when it comes to consciousness, we're still in the dark. We can map brain activity. We can observe how the brain responds to the different experiences, but we still can't answer the most basic question. Why do we have consciousness in the first place? Why is the brain not just a collection of neurons and synapses, but a source of subjective experience? And if consciousness arises from the brain, what does that mean for the mind body connection? If the brain is just a physical organ, then is the mind, our thoughts, our emotions, our inner lives, nothing more than a product of biology? Or is there something more to it? Some have proposed that consciousness is not merely the result of brain activity, but something that exists beyond the physical brain, a non material force, an energy that exists independently of the body. This is the view of dualism, which suggests that the mind and body are separate entities, that consciousness is not confined to the brain, but transcends the physical world. But even if we accept the idea of dualism, we still don't know where consciousness comes from. If it's not just a product of the brain, what is it? Some believe that consciousness is a fundamental aspect of the universe, like space, time, and energy. In this view, consciousness exists in everything, from the smallest particles to the largest galaxies. It's not something that arises from the brain, but something that permeates all of reality. Some philosophers have even suggested that the universe itself might be conscious, that all of existence is imbued with awareness in some form. This idea leads us to a fascinating possibility that consciousness isn't just something we have, but something we are. Perhaps consciousness is not confined to our brains, but is a fundamental aspect of the fabric of reality itself, a thread that runs through everything, connecting all things in a vast, intricate web of awareness. Could it be that we are all expressions of this universal consciousness, part of a greater whole, experiencing ourselves as individuals, but also as a part of something much larger? But there's a darker side to this question. If consciousness is not something that originates in the brain, if it is something more than the physical, then where does it go when we die? Does it simply vanish as the body decomposes? Or does it continue on, perhaps moving into another form of existence, another reality? And if consciousness can exist independently of the brain, could it exist without a body at all? Could our awareness survive after death, free from the physical constraints of the body? This is the question at the heart of many religious and spiritual beliefs. In some traditions, consciousness is seen as the eternal soul, a divine spark that exists beyond the body and continues on after death. In others, consciousness is believed to merge with the universe, becoming one with everything. But from a scientific perspective, the question remains unanswered. We don't know what happens to consciousness when the body dies, and we may never know for sure. But here's a thought. If consciousness is a fundamental aspect of the universe, if it is truly inseparable from the fabric of reality, then perhaps it never truly goes away. Maybe the experience of death is not the end of consciousness, but simply a transformation, a shift from one form of awareness to another. Perhaps when we die, we don't lose consciousness, but change the way we experience it. There's also the possibility that consciousness is not confined to individual beings at all. In this view, we are not isolated minds, but part of a collective consciousness, a vast, interconnected network of awareness that stretches across time and space. This idea is often called panpsychism, which suggests that everything in the universe is conscious in some way. From the smallest particle to the largest star, everything might possess some form of awareness. In this view, consciousness is not something that emerges in humans or animals, but is inherent in all things, a fundamental quality of the universe itself. If that's true, then our individual consciousnesses are not isolated, but connected to a much larger, more profound source of awareness. But if consciousness is a universal force, how do we experience it? How do we perceive ourselves as individuals, as separate beings, if we are all part of this vast, interconnected network? Is the feeling of separateness, of individuality, an illusion, something our minds create to make sense of our experiences? Or is it a necessary aspect of the way consciousness expresses itself in the world, a way for the universe to experience itself through countless different perspectives? The mystery of consciousness is one of the most profound questions we face. We can't explain where it comes from, why it exists, or how it works. We don't know whether it's something we create, something that arises from the brain, or something that exists independently of the physical world. But perhaps that's okay. Maybe the mystery is what makes consciousness so special. It's the very essence of who we are, and it's something we'll never fully understand. And perhaps that's the way it's meant to be. Because in the end, consciousness is not just something we have, it is something we experience. It's the lens through which we see the world, the filter that shapes our reality, the spark that makes us feel alive. And even though we may never fully understand it, it is the most profound and beautiful mystery of all. What is reality? We live our lives within a set of rules, a framework that we call reality. We wake up, we interact with the world, we make choices, and we follow the patterns of the universe. It all seems so real, so tangible. We can touch things, see them, feel them. Everything we experience appears to be solid, concrete, undeniable. But what if that's not the full story? What if reality, as we perceive it, isn't actually what it seems? What if everything we know, everything we experience, is just a construct of the mind, a fragile illusion that our consciousness has built to make sense of the world around us? We've all heard of the concept of perception as reality, the idea that what we see, hear, and feel is shaped by our minds. But what if that's not just a catchy phrase? What if reality itself is entirely dependent on how we perceive it, how our minds interpret the data we receive from the world. What if our senses, the very tools we use to navigate the world, are not infallible, but are actually filters that limit and distort what we experience? Take sight, for example. We look around and we see a world full of color, depth, and texture, but our eyes only perceive a fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum. We can't see ultraviolet or infrared light, even though those wavelengths exist all around us. And what about the fact that what we see isn't always what's really there? Optical illusions, mirages, and the tricks our brains play on us every day suggest that even the most seemingly objective experience of reality is influenced by our minds. If sight can be fooled, how much else of what we experience is subject to the same trickery? And what about sound? We hear the world around us, the voices of those we love, the hum of distant traffic, the rustle of leaves in the wind. But what if sound, too, is not an objective phenomenon, but a subjective one, created by our brains as a response to the vibrations in the air? What if the way we hear sound is not a direct reflection of the world, but a mental construction, an interpretation of data that is tailored to our own personal experience? Even our sense of touch, so integral to our experience of the world, might not be as reliable as we think. The sensation of touch is not just a direct interaction with the physical world. It's a complex process that begins in our skin and ends in our brain, where our mind interprets the signals. What if that interpretation is flawed? What if the way we feel the world is influenced by expectations, biases, or even our emotional state? Can we trust our senses, or are they simply constructing a version of reality that fits our needs? Now, let's take this a step further. If our senses can be fooled, if reality is so subjective, then what does that say about the world outside of us? We often think of reality as something that exists independently of us, something that is objective and unchanging. We imagine that the world exists as it is, whether we're looking at it or not. But what if that's not the case? What if reality doesn't truly exist until we observe it, until we experience it through our senses? What if the act of perception itself creates reality, shaping the world around us based on how we look at it, how we interpret it? This idea, known as quantum mechanics, suggests that at the smallest scales, reality behaves in strange and unpredictable ways. Particles don't have definite properties until they are observed. They exist in multiple states at once until they are measured, at which point they collapse into one particular state. The famous double slit experiment demonstrated this mind bending phenomenon. When particles are unobserved, they behave like waves, existing in all possible positions at once. But when we measure them, they behave like particles, choosing a single position. The very act of observation changes the outcome. Could it be that reality itself is like this, that it doesn't fully exist until we observe it? Could it be that the universe, at its most fundamental level, is shaped by our consciousness, by our ability to observe and interact with it? But even if reality is created in this way, that doesn't mean it's all just a figment of our imagination. We experience the world in a very specific, shared way. We interact with others who see, hear, and feel the world in ways that are remarkably similar to our own. The laws of physics, gravity, electromagnetism, thermodynamics apply consistently across the entire universe, regardless of who's observing them. This shared experience of reality, the fact that the universe operates in a predictable, understandable way, suggests that there is something objective about reality, something that exists independently of any single observer. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. Maybe reality is not just an illusion, but a complex interplay between perception and objectivity. Our minds shape the way we experience the world, but the world itself has a structure, a framework that we can study and understand. We live in a world where both subjectivity and objectivity coexist, where our perceptions of reality are influenced by our minds, but also grounded in the physical laws that govern the universe. And yet, even as we try to understand reality, we're faced with the possibility that there's much more to it than we can see or comprehend. There are aspects of existence that go beyond our senses, beyond our current scientific understanding. What if reality is more than just what we can measure, what we can perceive? What if there are dimensions, forces, or aspects of the universe that are hidden from us, things that we can't even begin to imagine, let alone experience? This is the mystery of reality. It's a question that has driven us to explore the cosmos, to push the boundaries of human knowledge, and to look beyond the horizon of our understanding. But even as we uncover more about the world, we realize that we are just scratching the surface. Reality is far deeper, far more complex than we can possibly comprehend. And perhaps that's part of the beauty of it. Perhaps the unknown, the unobservable, the mysterious parts of reality are what make it so fascinating, so endlessly intriguing. So, what is reality? Is it what we see, what we touch, what we measure? Or is it something more, something that exists beyond our senses, beyond our minds? The answer may be more elusive than we could ever imagine, but in the quest to understand it, we may find that the very search for reality is what makes it real. After all, the pursuit of truth, the desire to know, is what defines us as human beings. And even if we never fully grasp the nature of reality, the journey itself is worth every step. What is the meaning of life? It's the question that has haunted humanity for as long as we've had the ability to ask it. From the earliest philosophers to the greatest minds of the modern era, we've all searched for an answer, hoping that in understanding the meaning of life, we might find purpose, fulfillment, and a sense of peace. But despite millennia of reflection, debate, and exploration, the answer remains elusive. Is there a grand purpose behind our existence? Or are we simply here by chance, living in a world that doesn't truly care about us? The question of life's meaning is often tied to our search for significance. We seek purpose in everything we do: our relationships, our work, our passions, our beliefs. We search for meaning in the things we love, hoping that these things will give us a reason to keep going when the world feels uncertain. But what happens when we can't find that meaning? What happens when we feel lost, adrift in a sea of uncertainty, unable to connect the dots that make up our lives? The answer to this question is deeply personal. For some, the meaning of life is found in religion, in the belief that we are here for a reason, that we have a divine purpose that transcends the physical world. For others, the meaning may be more existential, a quest to create meaning in an otherwise indifferent universe. It may be found in the pursuit of knowledge, the search for truth, or the desire to make a difference in the world. But even if we find meaning in our lives, it's still difficult to answer the question in any universal sense. What is the meaning of life for all of humanity? Is there a single answer that applies to everyone, or is meaning something we each create for ourselves? Could it be that life's meaning is not an objective truth, but a subjective experience, one that we must each discover on our own? Think about the vastness of the universe. We are a tiny speck of life on a tiny planet, orbiting a star in one of billions of galaxies. If you look at it from a cosmic perspective, it can feel as if our existence is insignificant, as if the things we care about are so small compared to the enormity of the universe. But perhaps that's exactly what makes life meaningful, our ability to create meaning in an otherwise indifferent cosmos. In a universe that is vast, uncaring, and full of chaos, the fact that we are capable of finding significance, of making our lives matter, is what makes it all worthwhile. For many, the search for meaning leads to an exploration of philosophy, religion, and spirituality. We seek answers from ancient texts, from enlightened minds, from the mysteries of the universe. We look for clues in the patterns of nature, in the connections between all things, in the way the world fits together. And yet, no matter where we look, the answer remains elusive. Every time we think we've found the truth, another question arises, another mystery unfolds. But perhaps the key to understanding the meaning of life isn't in the answers we find, but in the search itself. Perhaps life's meaning is not something that can be discovered once and for all, but something that we create over and over again through the choices we make, the relationships we form, and the experiences we have. The meaning of life might not be a single truth, but a series of truths, each one more personal, more individual, more connected to the experiences that shape us. When we look back on our lives, we often find that the moments that gave us the most meaning were not the grand achievements or the big milestones, but the small, seemingly insignificant moments, the times we shared with others, the moments of joy, love, and connection. Perhaps life's meaning isn't about achieving greatness or solving the mysteries of the universe. Perhaps it's about the way we live, the way we treat others, and the way we experience the world. And yet, there are still those who argue that life has no meaning at all, that we are here by accident, the result of an unfeeling universe, and that our existence is ultimately meaningless. It's a grim thought, one that can make us feel as though everything we do is pointless, that the struggles we face are in vain. But even if we accept this view, there's still something profoundly beautiful about the idea that we can create meaning in a world that has none. If life has no inherent purpose, then it's up to us to give it one. We are the architects of our own meaning, the creators of our own purpose. In a world without meaning, we are free to make our lives whatever we want them to be. But here's the catch. As much as we search for meaning, we must also be willing to accept the uncertainty that comes with it. The search for meaning is not a simple, linear path. It's a winding journey, full of doubt, confusion, and even despair. We will face moments when we question everything, when we wonder if we're on the right path, when we wonder if anything we do matters at all. But it's in those moments of doubt that we often find the most profound answers, the most meaningful discoveries. It's in the struggle, in the quest, that we truly begin to understand what life is all about. So, what is the meaning of life? The answer might not be as important as the question itself. The fact that we ask it, that we ponder it, that we search for it, is what gives life its meaning. It's the journey of seeking, of growing, of understanding that makes life worth living. The meaning of life might not be something that can be found in a single moment, but something that unfolds over time, shaped by our experiences, our choices, and our relationships. In the end, perhaps the meaning of life is not something to be found, but something to be created. It's something we build piece by piece through the lives we live and the connections we make. It's the meaning we give to the world, the meaning we give to each other, and the meaning we give to ourselves. And in that, perhaps we find the answer. Life is not about searching for meaning, it's about creating it, living it, and sharing it with those around us. What if the dead are still aware and they're watching us, but we can never see them? For centuries, humanity has grappled with the idea of what happens after we die. Do we simply cease to exist, or is there something beyond the physical world, a place where our consciousness continues to exist in some form? From religious beliefs to near death experiences, people across the world have offered countless explanations for what happens after death. But there's one thought that continues to disturb and intrigue us. What if the dead are still here, aware of us, watching us, but we can never perceive them? We often imagine death as an end, a final curtain falling on the stage of life. The body decays, the heart stops beating, and the mind fades away, leaving only memories behind. But what if that's not the whole story? What if consciousness doesn't vanish with death? What if instead it lingers, fading but never truly gone, a whisper on the other side of existence, silently observing the living? Let's take a step back and think about how we experience reality. We perceive the world through our senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. Our consciousness is tied to the functioning of our brain, which interprets these signals and gives us a coherent sense of self and the world around us. But is it possible that there's more to our perception of reality than meets the eye? Could there be another layer of existence, a hidden dimension that we can't see or touch, where the dead still reside, aware but invisible? If we consider the possibility of consciousness persisting after death, it raises many questions. What would it mean for the soul or the essence of a person to continue after the body has gone? Could the dead still perceive the world, but through a different lens, one that we can't detect, no matter how hard we try? Imagine being surrounded by the dead, them silently observing us, unable to interact with us, but always watching. It's a chilling thought, yet it's one that resonates with many people who have had experiences of feeling the presence of lost loved ones, hearing their names whispered, or sensing their gaze from beyond. This idea also taps into some of the most enduring myths and beliefs about ghosts, spirits, and the afterlife. Across cultures, there are stories of the dead lingering, stuck between worlds, unable to move on. Whether in the form of a ghost, a spirit, or an energy. The dead are sometimes depicted as watching over the living, unable to communicate directly, but still present in some way. But what if the dead are not lingering in the traditional sense? What if they are not haunting us, not trying to make contact, but are simply there, aware of us, silently observing our lives unfold? They may be watching our every move, witnessing our joys, our sorrows, and our mistakes, but they remain invisible, unable to intervene or reveal themselves. The thought that the dead could still be aware, but invisible, presents a paradox. If they are still conscious in some way, why can't we perceive them? Could it be that our senses are simply incapable of detecting them? Or is it possible that their awareness exists on a different plane, one that operates outside the bounds of our physical reality? Perhaps the dead occupy a dimension that overlaps with our own, but we can't access it because our perception is limited to the three dimensions of space and the linear flow of time. If consciousness survives death, could it be that we are unable to detect it because we are trapped in a finite material world, unable to pierce the veil that separates us from the unseen? Consider the implications of such an idea. If the dead are aware of us, watching us, but we can never see them, how does this affect our understanding of death and existence? Could the dead be aware of the decisions we make, the paths we choose, and the way we live our lives? Are they silently judging us, offering guidance that we cannot perceive? Or perhaps they are simply observing, detached, as we move through our existence, unaware that we are being watched by those who came before us. In some ways, this concept challenges our understanding of life and death. We think of death as the end of an individual's story, the final chapter in a book that cannot be rewritten. But what if that story continues, just out of sight, a shadow in the background of our lives? What if the dead are still part of the narrative, still connected to the living, even if we can never truly reach them? And what would that mean for our understanding of consciousness itself? Could it be that consciousness is not tied to the physical body, but instead exists independently of it, capable of persisting beyond death in some form? It's also worth considering how this idea changes our perception of life. If we are being watched by the dead, does it change how we behave? Would we live differently if we knew that the deceased were silently observing our every move? Would we take more care in our actions, in our decisions, knowing that our loved ones, who are no longer physically present, could still be aware of what we do? Would we become more mindful of the connections we've lost, or more attuned to the presence of the unseen? And if the dead are watching, what do they see? Do they see us as we truly are, with all our flaws and complexities, or do they see a version of ourselves that's shaped by their memory of us? Perhaps they see us differently than we see ourselves, through the lens of love, regret, or nostalgia. Perhaps the dead are not watching us with judgment, but with an understanding, as if they can perceive the struggles we face, the choices we make, and the lives we lead from a perspective of eternal patience. But then we're left with the biggest question: why can't we see them? If they are watching us, why don't they make their presence known? Perhaps it's not because they don't want to. Perhaps they simply can't. Perhaps their awareness is limited in some way, trapped in a space we cannot access. Or perhaps they have already made their peace with their existence, content to watch from afar, knowing that they have already played their part in the story of life. We may never know the truth of what happens after death, or whether the dead are truly aware and watching us. But the idea that they might be watching silently while we continue with our lives raises profound questions about the nature of existence, the connection between the living and the dead, and the limits of our understanding. It reminds us that we are not alone, that the lives of those who came before us continue to echo in the world around us, even if we can't see them. Next time you feel a sudden chill, hear a soft whisper, or sense a presence that you can't explain, take a moment to consider this. Maybe the dead are still here, still aware, and still watching, but we can never see them. They're there, in the shadows, part of the ever present fabric of our reality, invisible but not absent. And maybe, just maybe, that awareness is more profound and eternal than we could ever imagine. What does it mean to be alive? We're all familiar with the basics of life: growth, reproduction, metabolism, and response to stimuli. But when we step back and truly ask the question, the answer isn't as straightforward as it seems. What makes something alive versus inanimate? Is it simply a series of biological processes? Or is there something more to life, something intangible, something that defines us as living beings? Philosophers and scientists alike have grappled with the concept of life for centuries. Is life just the product of chemicals reacting in a specific way, or is there a deeper, more profound essence that gives life its meaning? And where do we draw the line between life and non life? At what point does a collection of atoms and molecules become more than just a lifeless assembly? Take, for example, the human body. It's a remarkable collection of cells, tissues, and organs, all working in harmony to keep us alive. Each part has its function. Our heart pumps blood, our lungs breathe air, our brain controls thought and action. These processes are vital for survival, and without them, we would not be alive. But what is it that makes these processes more than just mechanical actions? What is the force that binds them together, that makes them coordinated, that turns a collection of cells into a living, breathing being? Some may say it's consciousness, that awareness of being, the ability to think, feel, and experience the world. Consciousness is one of the most elusive and profound aspects of life. It's what makes us aware of our existence, what allows us to reflect on our thoughts and actions. But consciousness itself is a mystery. Where does it come from? How does it arise from the firing of neurons in the brain? Is consciousness just a byproduct of complex biology, or is it something more, something fundamental to the nature of existence? The idea that life is more than just a set of biological processes is supported by the concept of emergence. Emergence is the idea that complex systems can arise from the interaction of simpler elements, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. For example, a single neuron in the brain doesn't have the ability to think or feel, but when millions of neurons work together, they create the complex, coordinated activity that we experience as consciousness. Similarly, life itself emerges from the interactions of molecules, cells, and systems. It's not just about the individual components, it's about how they come together to form something more, a living organism with a sense of self, with the ability to respond to its environment and adapt over time. This brings us to the concept of homeostasis, the process by which living organisms maintain internal stability despite changes in their external environment. Homeostasis is a hallmark of life, allowing organisms to survive and thrive in ever changing conditions. Whether it's regulating our body temperature, balancing our fluids, or controlling our metabolism, homeostasis ensures that our bodies function properly even when the world around us is in flux. It's a form of self regulation, an essential characteristic of living systems that sets them apart from non living matter. But what about life beyond Earth? For centuries, humans have wondered whether life exists on other planets, in other galaxies. We've sent probes to distant worlds, searching for signs of life, whether in the form of microbial organisms or more complex beings. And while we haven't found definitive proof of life beyond Earth, the question remains: what would it mean if we did? What would it mean to discover that life can exist in different environments, on different planets, under different conditions? Would that redefine our understanding of life itself? Or would it simply confirm what we already know, that life is a natural phenomenon, a product of the universe's physical laws? As we search for life in the cosmos, we also grapple with the question of what it means to be alive in a philosophical sense. If life is defined by biology, by the ability to grow, reproduce, and respond to stimuli, then what happens when those processes break down? What happens when a living organism ceases to function, when its cells stop dividing, when its heart stops beating, and its brain stops thinking? Is that organism still alive, or has it crossed the threshold into death? Death is an inevitable part of life, yet it raises difficult questions. If life is defined by the biological processes that sustain it, then death is the cessation of those processes. But does that mean that the essence of the person, consciousness, identity, soul, ceases to exist as well? Many cultures and religions have developed their own answers to this question, positing that life continues in some form after death, whether through reincarnation, an afterlife, or some other spiritual journey. But in the realm of science, the question of what happens after death remains largely unanswered. Does consciousness truly end when the brain dies? Or is there something more that transcends the physical body? And what about the meaning of life? Is life itself enough? Or do we need to find deeper significance, purpose, and direction? For many, the search for meaning is an integral part of what it means to be alive. Some seek meaning through relationships, family, love, and connection. Others search for purpose through their work, their passions, or their contributions to society. For some, meaning is found in the pursuit of knowledge, in the understanding of the universe, in science, philosophy, or art. But for others, life may seem meaningless, an endless cycle of mundane tasks and fleeting moments. In these moments, we may feel lost, disconnected, and uncertain of our place in the world. Despite these uncertainties, one thing remains clear: to be alive is to experience. It's to be aware of our existence, to feel joy and sorrow, to love and lose, to grow and change. Life is a journey of discovery, a process of becoming. It's a constant evolution, both physical and mental, shaped by the choices we make, the people we meet, and the challenges we face. And while we may never fully understand the nature of life, perhaps it is in the mystery itself that we find its true meaning. To be alive is to live with questions, to seek answers, to embrace the unknown, and to continually strive for growth and understanding. Ultimately, to be alive is not just about biology or consciousness, it's about the experience of existence, the act of being present in the world, and the connection we share with others and the universe. Life, in all its complexity, is both a gift and a mystery, and it's in our pursuit of meaning, in our search for truth, that we come to understand what it truly means to be alive. Can we ever truly know anything? We live in a world where knowledge is power, where understanding the world around us is seen as the key to navigating life. But how much of what we know is actually true? What does it mean to know something? And can we, as human beings, ever truly know anything with absolute certainty? Or are we forever bound by the limits of our perception, biases, and interpretations? The question of knowledge, or epistemology, has been at the heart of philosophy for thousands of years. The ancient Greek philosophers, like Socrates and Plato, grappled with the nature of knowledge, asking how we come to know things and whether we can ever know anything with absolute certainty. The skeptic school of thought, for example, suggested that we cannot truly know anything at all because our perceptions and reasoning are inherently flawed. In their view, every belief we hold is based on assumptions and interpretations that could be wrong. This idea is deeply unsettling. If we can't rely on our senses, if our understanding is shaped by our biases and limitations, then how can we trust anything we know? Is there such a thing as objective truth, or is all knowledge subjective, shaped by the lens through which we view the world? Consider this. When you look at a tree, you may believe that you're seeing it exactly as it is, but your perception of that tree is not a perfect representation of reality. Your brain processes light and color in a particular way, and your senses interpret that data to create your experience of the tree. But what if your perception is flawed, influenced by factors you aren't aware of? What if the tree you see is not exactly the tree that someone else sees? And what if, on a deeper level, what you call seeing isn't seeing at all, but simply your brain's interpretation of light and data? This brings us to the concept of phenomenology, a branch of philosophy that deals with the way we experience the world. According to phenomenologists, our experience of the world is not direct. We don't have immediate access to reality itself. Rather, we experience the world through the filter of our senses and mind. What we call reality is an interpretation, a construction of the mind based on the raw data that our senses provide. In this view, our perception of reality is always mediated by our mind, meaning that we can never access the world directly without our own interpretation. This raises an important question. If all knowledge is mediated through our senses and our mind, how can we be sure that anything we know is true? How do we know that the tree we see is really a tree and not just our mind's interpretation of it? How do we know that the world we experience is the same as the world as it truly is? The famous philosopher René Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am." In his quest for certainty, Descartes doubted everything he thought he knew, even the existence of the external world. He considered the possibility that everything he perceived, the tree, the world, even his own body, could be an illusion created by a powerful deceiver. The only thing Descartes could be certain of was his own existence, the fact that he was thinking, and therefore that he must exist. But even if we accept the certainty of our own existence, that still leaves us with the question of how we know anything else. If we can't rely on our senses or our minds to give us an accurate picture of the world, then what can we trust? Can we ever truly know anything? One answer to this question comes from the field of science. Science is built on the idea that we can make observations, form hypotheses, test those hypotheses, and draw conclusions based on evidence. In this sense, science offers a way to gain knowledge about the world that is as objective as possible. By using rigorous methods, scientists attempt to remove personal bias, error, and interpretation from their observations, hoping to arrive at truths that are independent of individual perception. But even science is not free from doubt. The very methods that scientists use to study the world are based on assumptions, models, and frameworks that are themselves open to change. Scientific knowledge is always subject to revision, to new discoveries that may challenge what we thought we knew. This is why science is a continually evolving process. What we know today may not be the same as what we know tomorrow. This constant revision of knowledge leads us to another aspect of the question. Is there such a thing as absolute truth? Some philosophers argue that truth is relative, shaped by culture, language, and perspective. In this view, what is true for one person or society may not be true for another. Truth, in this sense, is not a fixed or universal standard, but something that is shaped by context and experience. On the other hand, many believe that there are objective truths that exist independently of our perceptions. For example, the fact that the Earth orbits the Sun is a truth that holds regardless of anyone's beliefs or perceptions. The laws of physics, such as gravity, thermodynamics, and electromagnetism, are considered universal, applying everywhere in the universe. But what about more abstract concepts, like morality or beauty? Are these subjective, shaped by individual preference, or do they point to something deeper, something universal, that transcends our personal experiences? This is a question that continues to provoke debate in philosophy, religion, and the arts. In the end, the question of whether we can ever truly know anything remains deeply complex. It touches on the nature of perception, reality, and truth itself. And while we may never find absolute answers to these questions, the search for knowledge is part of what makes us human. The process of questioning, of seeking answers, and of challenging what we think we know is essential to the human experience. Maybe then, the very act of questioning is what defines our pursuit of knowledge. Perhaps knowledge isn't something we can ever fully possess, but something we continuously strive to understand. It's not about certainty, it's about exploration. And in that exploration, we find meaning even in the uncertainty. What if death is just the beginning of another life? What happens after death? Is it the end, or could it be just the beginning of something new? It's a question that stirs deep within us all, a mystery that no one can truly answer. For centuries, humanity has sought to understand what happens when we die. Some believe in the promise of an afterlife, others in reincarnation, while some hold that death is simply the end, an irreversible conclusion to our consciousness. But what if death is not the end at all? What if, instead, it's simply the beginning of another life? Imagine for a moment that death isn't the end of everything we know, but rather a transition. Just like a door closing behind us, death might be a passage to another realm, another life, another form of existence. But what would that existence look like? How would we know that we are still us? Can we truly say that we live only one life? Or could the essence of our being, the very core of who we are, continue beyond this body? To explore this, we must first consider the possibility that life is cyclical, just as nature operates in cycles. The seasons change, night turns to day, and in the grandest of scales, the universe itself is expanding and contracting. What if, within this vast cycle, death simply represents a change, a transformation, rather than an end? The notion of reincarnation, where we live again in a new body, is a common belief across many cultures. In this view, death is just one stage in an endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. But how would that work exactly? When we die, do we carry with us the memories, the experiences, the very essence of who we are? Or are we reborn as a completely new being without any memory of the past? Could it be that when we die, we are like a tree shedding its leaves in the autumn, leaving behind all of our previous experiences to start fresh? Imagine that for a moment. Living multiple lives, experiencing the world in different forms, without any memory of your past selves. Each time starting anew, yet perhaps carrying with you some subtle imprint of what came before. Is there a reason we cannot recall past lives, or is it a form of protection, a way of ensuring that we can experience each new life without the baggage of the past? Now consider the possibility that death is not a sudden cessation of our existence, but a gradual transition. What if, when we die, our consciousness simply shifts, moving from one form of life to another? Maybe we do not experience death as we think we will. Maybe it's not as abrupt as we imagine. Could it be that, as one life ends, another begins seamlessly, like a wave rolling in and out of the ocean without interruption? This idea is comforting for some. It implies that life is never truly wasted, that every experience contributes to a greater understanding of the universe and our place within it. But there's also a deeper, more unsettling thought that accompanies this. If death is just the beginning of another life, does that mean our journey, our growth, is never truly complete? Are we bound to live and learn over and over, never reaching an ultimate conclusion, always seeking, always growing, yet never fully understanding the entirety of existence? This also leads us to ponder the nature of consciousness itself. What makes us who we are? Is it simply the biological processes of the brain, or is there something deeper, something eternal that transcends the body? If we live multiple lives, do we take with us more than just memories? Do we carry with us something unquantifiable, our essence, our soul, or whatever you choose to call it, into each new life? Is there a continuity of self even as we are reborn? Now think about the implications of this. If we were to live again after death, would we be able to remember our past lives, or would each rebirth erase those memories completely? Some say that the reason we don't remember our past lives is that we need a fresh start, a clean slate to truly grow and learn. But what if remembering our past lives would be more of a burden than a gift? Could it be that the universe has designed this process of forgetting to protect us from the overwhelming weight of our past, allowing us to experience each life as if it were new, untainted by what came before? And then there is the idea that death could be a form of evolution, a way for the soul or consciousness to continuously evolve and reach higher levels of understanding. Just as in life, we strive to learn from our experiences, to grow, to become better versions of ourselves. What if death serves as a reset, allowing us to begin anew with the knowledge and wisdom we've accumulated in previous lives? But this raises even more questions. If our consciousness evolves over many lifetimes, what is the ultimate goal? Is there an end to this cycle, or do we continue forever, learning, growing, transforming into something greater? In modern science, there are theories that suggest consciousness may be an emergent property of the brain, a byproduct of complex neurobiological processes. In this view, when the brain stops functioning, so too does consciousness. But what if this view is too narrow? What if consciousness is not merely a byproduct of the brain, but something far more expansive, something that exists independently of the body? Could it be that consciousness itself is a continuous thread that stretches across multiple lifetimes, transcending the physical body and its limitations? Then, there is the concept of the afterlife, a concept that has been a part of human history for thousands of years. If death is not the end, where does the soul go? Some traditions speak of an eternal paradise, others of a place of judgment, while some believe in the concept of purgatory, a waiting period where the soul is cleansed before moving on. But are these just comforting stories, or could they be reflections of a deeper truth? What if the afterlife is not a place at all, but a transition to another form of existence, a higher plane of consciousness, free from the constraints of the physical world? In this sense, death is not something to fear, but something to embrace, knowing that it is simply the next step in a never ending journey. And what if the answer to what happens after death is not something we can fully understand in this life, but something we will only comprehend when we transition into the next? What if the cycle of life and death is just a part of a much larger plan, one that we cannot fully grasp from our limited human perspective? But here's the unsettling truth. Even if death is just the beginning of another life, we may never know. It's a mystery that we can only wonder about, a question that may never be answered in our lifetimes. But that doesn't mean we should stop asking. The search for answers, the curiosity about the unknown, is what makes us human. It's what drives us to explore, to learn, to grow. Perhaps the most important thing is not the answer itself, but the willingness to ask the question and to live with the mystery. So, next time you think about death, remember this: it might not be the end, it might be the beginning of something new, a new adventure, a new life. And even if we never fully understand what comes after, we can take comfort in knowing that we are part of something larger than ourselves, a never ending cycle of existence that stretches across time and space. In that sense, perhaps death isn't something to fear at all. Maybe it's just the next step in our eternal journey, a journey that will continue no matter what. Could we be dreaming right now and everything we perceive is false? It's a chilling thought, isn't it? The idea that everything we see, feel, hear, and touch might not be real at all. What if everything you know about your life, your experiences, your surroundings, and even your own sense of self is just an illusion? What if right now, in this very moment, you are simply dreaming? This isn't just a question of metaphysics or philosophy. It's an idea that has troubled thinkers for centuries and one that modern science has yet to fully answer. Think about it. We live our lives believing that the world around us is real, that our senses give us an accurate depiction of the universe. But what if those senses are deceiving us? What if our reality isn't as solid and dependable as we believe? The idea that we might be dreaming right now raises a host of unsettling questions. How do we know that what we experience is not just a fabrication of our minds? How do we know that the physical world we interact with exists independently of our perception of it? What if everything, the people we meet, the places we go, the objects we touch, are merely figments of a dream created in our minds as we sleep? Consider the concept of lucid dreaming. In a lucid dream, we become aware that we are dreaming, and sometimes we can even control the dream itself. But while we're in a dream, it feels real, doesn't it? The sensations, the emotions, the vivid landscapes, it all feels as though we are truly experiencing something. So, if we can experience that level of realism in a dream, how can we be sure that what we perceive in waking life is any different? How do we know that this moment, this conversation, this reality isn't just another layer of our dreaming mind? Some philosophers have explored this idea through thought experiments. One of the most famous is Rene Descartes' concept of radical skepticism. Descartes argued that the only thing we can be absolutely certain of is our own existence. Cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. But what if even that certainty is called into question? What if our thoughts, our sense of self, are just part of an elaborate dream constructed by our own minds? Descartes even himself considered the possibility that an evil demon could be manipulating his perceptions, leading him to believe in a reality that doesn't truly exist. In modern times, this line of thinking has evolved into what is now called the simulation hypothesis. The idea is that our entire reality, everything we experience, could be a simulation, an artificial construct created by an advanced civilization or a higher intelligence. What if we are simply characters in a vast, sophisticated virtual reality, completely unaware that the world around us is fabricated? Some proponents of this idea argue that it's statistically likely that we are living in a simulation, given the rapid advancements in computing and virtual reality technology. If a civilization could create a simulation of consciousness, then it would be difficult to prove that we aren't part of it. But if we're dreaming, if everything we perceive is false, what does that mean for our lives? If our experiences aren't real, does anything we do matter? Does love, ambition, pain, or joy hold any significance if they are just projections of a dream? These are deep and unsettling questions, ones that force us to confront the very nature of existence itself. And yet, there's something paradoxical about this idea. If everything is a dream, then who or what is the dreamer? Are we, as individuals, simply constructs within a greater mind? Or is the very notion of a dreamer itself just another layer of illusion, something our minds create to give our experiences meaning? Could it be that the dream and the dreamer are intertwined, inseparable? Even if we consider the world to be a simulation, as some have proposed, it doesn't necessarily negate the reality of our experiences. After all, even if we are in a virtual reality, it doesn't change the fact that the simulation feels real to us. Our emotions, our thoughts, our senses, they're still experienced as though they are part of something tangible, something real. So, even if we're dreaming or living in a simulation, does it matter if our experiences are false? Could it be that the very experience of existence, even if it's a dream, is meaningful in and of itself? Moreover, there's a comforting thought hidden in this idea. If everything we perceive is false, then we are free from the constraints of reality. We can imagine a world where the rules of physics, time, and space don't apply. We could be in a world where anything is possible, where limitations don't exist, and where our desires and dreams take shape with ease. If our perceptions are malleable, then we are free to create our own reality, to reshape the world around us, as though we were characters in a story that we write ourselves. But there's also the darker side to this idea. What if we are trapped in a perpetual dream? What if we cannot wake up? What if the illusion is so convincing that we spend our entire existence without ever realizing it? Could it be that we're living in a loop, reliving the same experiences, making the same choices, unaware that the world around us is merely a mirage? This leads us to another unsettling possibility. What if we're not just dreaming now, but have always been dreaming? Could it be that our waking life is just a continuation of a dream we began long ago and that we'll never truly wake up? What if the concept of waking itself is just another part of the dream, a way of convincing us that we are aware, that we are in control, when in fact we are not? As you consider these possibilities, you might begin to ask yourself, if everything we perceive is false, does it matter? If we are dreaming or living in a simulation or existing in a reality that isn't real, what is the point of it all? The answer might be that it doesn't matter. The dream, the illusion, the simulation, it's all part of the experience. If we can accept that our perceptions are fluid, that reality itself is malleable, then we can approach life with a sense of peace. Perhaps, in the grand scheme of things, the only truth we can rely on is the experience itself, the joy, the pain, the love, and the wonder that come with it. So, next time you find yourself questioning what is real, what is true, remember this. Even if it's all a dream, it's still your dream. And that, in itself, may be enough to make this moment feel real. Could time move backward? And if so, would we even notice? Time, for most of us, is an unyielding, forward moving force. We wake up in the morning, live through our day, and go to sleep at night, always moving ahead, one moment after the other. It's a constant rhythm, an inescapable tide that sweeps us through our lives, never pausing, never looking back. We feel time in the ticking of clocks, the changing of seasons, and the aging of our bodies. But what if time wasn't as fixed as we think? What if time could move backward? And if it could, would we even notice? At first glance, the idea of time moving backward seems absurd. After all, the second law of thermodynamics tells us that entropy, or disorder, always increases over time. Things naturally move from order to disorder. Ice cubes melt, flowers wilt, and we grow older. But what if somehow time could reverse? What would it mean for the universe, for us, and for our understanding of reality? Let's start by imagining that time could indeed move backward. What would happen to everything we know? Would the world simply begin to reverse itself, like rewinding a movie, with people aging backward, objects coming back together, and events replaying in reverse order? Would the coffee you spilled earlier return to the cup? And would the words you just spoke be undone, their sound waves reversing back into your mouth? It's a strange thought, isn't it? The idea that the entire flow of time could be reversed, like rewinding a tape recorder. And yet, there's something fascinating about the concept. In some ways, it challenges our most basic assumptions about how time works. We take for granted that time only moves in one direction, forward. But why should that be the case? Is it possible that time is not inherently one way, but simply appears that way because of how we experience it? In physics, time is often treated as a dimension, much like space. We move through space in three dimensions: left, right, up, down, forward, and backward. Why shouldn't time work the same way? After all, if you could move backward in space, it seems plausible that you could move backward in time as well. But there's a catch. According to our current understanding of the universe, the concept of time is intricately tied to the direction of entropy. As we move forward in time, the universe becomes more disordered. If we were to move backward in time, this order would be reversed, and everything would become more organized, more structured, more perfect. This reversal of entropy is what makes the idea of time moving backward so perplexing. For time to move backward, the universe would have to become more ordered with each passing moment, an idea that seems to contradict everything we observe in the natural world. But physics isn't always intuitive, and in certain theoretical frameworks, there are ways that time could potentially move backward, at least on a small scale. Take the concept of time symmetry, for example. In certain physical processes, the laws of physics don't distinguish between time moving forward or backward. These processes, called time reversible, behave in the same way regardless of the direction of time. For instance, the basic interactions of particles in quantum mechanics follow time symmetric laws. If you reverse the direction of time in a quantum system, the equations would still hold true. In other words, time could move backward in a theoretical sense, but we just don't observe it on a large scale because the universe has an overall preference for forward motion. This preference is what we call the arrow of time. But let's imagine for a moment that time does start moving backward, at least in a local sense. If everything began to rewind, would we be able to notice it? Could we see time reversing itself in real time? On some level, the answer might be no. We experience time subjectively from a fixed point in the present, and we remember the past as something already gone. Our brains are wired to process time in a linear fashion, always moving from what was to what is. If time were to reverse, our minds might not even recognize the shift, since we've never experienced it in that way before. What if instead we could only remember the future as it unfolded? Imagine that, instead of recalling memories of the past, you could only recall events that hadn't happened yet, like watching the future unfold in reverse. How would that change our understanding of reality? What would it be like to experience a life where nothing seems to be happening in real time, but instead, everything is unfolding in a slow motion reverse sequence? Could we notice, or would we simply adapt to the new direction of time, like a fish adapting to the flow of water? There's also an intriguing question of causality. In our experience of time, we understand that causes precede effects. If you push a glass off a table, it falls to the ground. If time were moving backward, would the effect precede the cause? Would the glass rise back up to the table, returning to its original position? What would happen to events that depend on causes and effects? Would actions we took earlier, decisions, movements, interactions, be undone as the world rewound itself? And yet, there's a certain kind of peace in this idea, isn't there? If time moved backward, perhaps we could undo our mistakes, change our choices, and experience life in reverse, starting with the end and returning to the beginning. But here's the paradox: even if we could undo our mistakes, we would have no memory of making them in the first place. We would never know what it was like to experience time moving forward, to truly feel the progression of our lives. Could that be a kind of curse in itself? Would we lose something essential about being human if we couldn't live our lives in the direction we know? Ultimately, the idea of time moving backward challenges our understanding of existence itself. It asks us to reconsider how we experience reality, how we perceive time, and what it means to truly live. Could time reverse itself? And if so, would we even notice? Perhaps, in the end, the more important question is not whether time could move backward, but how we would experience it if it did. Would we be able to grasp the enormity of such a shift, or would we simply float through time, unaware of the grand cosmic dance unfolding around us? Maybe for now, time will continue to move forward, just as it always has. But the next time you find yourself watching the world move on around you, consider this: what if time is not as unyielding as it seems? What if, somewhere in the far reaches of the universe, time is not the same as it is here, and the flow of reality can bend and twist, moving backward as easily as it moves forward? And if that's true, how would we ever know? So, next time you feel the passing of time, ask yourself, is this truly the direction we're meant to be moving in? Or is time simply a river we're floating down, carried by the current, unaware of the infinite possibilities that lie just beyond the bend? Could we be the last generation to ever exist and not know it? It's an unsettling thought, isn't it? The idea that all of human history, all of our achievements, all the dreams and ambitions that have propelled us forward through the ages could come to an end without any of us realizing it? What if, right now, in this moment, we are the final chapter in the story of humanity and we simply don't know it? For most of us, the concept of the future feels like an endless horizon, stretching far ahead, full of promise and possibility. We imagine a future where humanity thrives, where we solve the problems that plague us: climate change, war, poverty, and we continue to evolve, exploring new frontiers, perhaps even colonizing other planets. It's easy to imagine that the future is a certainty, that there will always be a tomorrow. But what if tomorrow never comes? What if our generation is the last to experience the world as we know it? To consider this possibility, we first have to ask ourselves, what would it take for humanity to cease to exist? It's not an easy question to answer, and the possibilities are as varied as they are terrifying. There are the obvious dangers: nuclear war, environmental collapse, pandemics, or catastrophic asteroid impacts. These are all real threats, each capable of wiping out civilization in a matter of hours, days, or months. But there's another, less obvious possibility that's even more unsettling. What if the end of humanity doesn't come with a bang, but with a whisper? What if we simply fade away, unnoticed and unremarked upon, like the last flicker of a dying flame? It's not as far fetched as it might seem. Think about it. We live in a time of unprecedented technological advancement. We've created systems that can harness the power of the atom, clone organisms, and even alter the genetic code that defines life itself. We've unlocked the secrets of space, sending probes to distant planets and exploring the very edges of the universe. Yet, despite all this progress, we find ourselves facing a series of existential threats that we may not be able to overcome. We've reached a point where we can destroy ourselves just as easily as we can create, and that creates a terrifying paradox. Humanity has the potential to end itself in ways that no one could have imagined just a few generations ago. So, could we be the last generation? Could it be that the future is not guaranteed, that the very progress we've made has set us on a path toward our own extinction? The idea of the last generation is one that echoes through the ages, from the apocalyptic visions of ancient civilizations to the existential crises of modern thinkers. There's something profoundly unsettling about the thought that we might be living at the end of something, but without any clue that it's happening. Imagine, for a moment, that we are indeed the last generation. How would we know? In many ways, the signs would be subtle, just the faintest shift in the rhythms of life. There would be no dramatic collapse, no sudden cataclysmic event. Instead, the slow unraveling of society would unfold over years, decades, maybe even centuries, imperceptible to most of us. Perhaps we would notice changes in the environment, bizarre weather patterns, the disappearance of species, rising sea levels, but we might dismiss them as inevitable parts of progress, as things that have always happened. Perhaps we would feel a sense of unease, a quiet anxiety that something is wrong, but we would have no concrete evidence to point to. Life would continue, just as it always has, until one day we wake up and realize that it's all over, that humanity has simply passed into history. But what if, in the midst of this slow decline, we could be doing something to stop it. What if, in this very moment, we still have the power to change the course of our future? The idea that we might be the last generation to exist is one that calls for action, for reflection, for a reevaluation of everything we hold dear. It forces us to ask ourselves, what kind of legacy do we want to leave behind? And if we are indeed the last generation, what will our contribution be? Will we be the generation that saw the end of humanity and did nothing? Or will we rise to the occasion, using our technology, our knowledge, and our will to preserve what's left of our world and our species? And here's another unsettling possibility. What if we're not the last generation at all, but simply the last to truly understand the gravity of the situation? Perhaps future generations will live in a world where the collapse is so gradual, so imperceptible, that they won't even realize that they're living through it. Perhaps they will experience a world that seems normal, even though it's far from it. They may not even know that they are the last humans to live in a world like the one we know today, simply because they never had the chance to see what came before. In this sense, the idea of being the last generation isn't just about a singular point in time, but about the way we relate to the future. Are we truly aware of what's at stake? Are we living as if there will always be another generation, or are we starting to understand that the end could come at any moment and that we have a responsibility to ensure that future generations have a chance to experience the world as we do? We can also consider the idea that humanity, in a sense, might already be transitioning into something new. The rise of artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and cybernetic enhancements all point to the fact that we are already changing in ways that we might not fully understand. Perhaps the human race as we know it is already fading, replaced by a new form of existence, one that transcends biology and physical limitations. In this sense, the last generation might not be the end of humanity, but the end of humanity as we understand it, a transition into something else, something that we may not fully comprehend. But no matter how we look at it, the question of whether we could be the last generation is a sobering one. It forces us to confront the fragile nature of existence, the unpredictability of the future, and the consequences of our actions. Could we be the last to walk the earth in the form we know? Could the future be slipping through our fingers, unnoticed? The answer, of course, is that we don't know. We can't know, but the very uncertainty of it all makes it all the more urgent that we reflect on the choices we make today and the legacy we leave behind. If we are the last generation, then the choices we make now are even more important. The way we treat the earth, the way we treat each other, the way we decide to shape the future, all of it will determine whether or not there is a future. And if we are not the last generation, then perhaps our actions will lay the foundation for future generations to thrive. But whether we are the last or not, one thing is clear. We must never take the future for granted. The world we live in today may not be the world of tomorrow, and we must do everything we can to ensure that the future we leave behind is a bright one. And if we do find ourselves at the end, with no one to follow in our footsteps, perhaps we can take comfort in the knowledge that, even if we are the last generation, we lived with the awareness of what was at stake and did our best to preserve the world for whatever comes next. Is the universe truly infinite, or is there an edge to everything we see? When we gaze up at the night sky, with its seemingly endless stretch of stars and galaxies, it's easy to imagine that the universe is infinite. After all, it appears boundless, with no clear limits to where space ends or where our view of the cosmos fades into nothingness. But what if the universe isn't infinite? What if, just beyond what we can see, there's an edge, a boundary beyond which nothing exists? This question has haunted scientists, philosophers, and cosmologists for centuries. In ancient times, people thought of the universe as a finite place, a small, contained world. But as our understanding of space and time grew, so did our perception of the universe. With the advent of modern astronomy and physics, we began to grasp the vastness of the cosmos, learning that it extends far beyond what our eyes can see. But despite all this knowledge, we still don't know the true nature of the universe's boundaries, or if they even exist at all. Let's begin with the concept of infinity. Infinity is a strange idea. It's not a number or a measurable quantity, but rather a concept that suggests something that has no end, no boundary. We speak of an infinite universe, an infinite number of stars, or an infinite expanse of space. But what does infinity really mean in the context of the universe? If the universe is infinite, does it mean that it goes on forever in every direction, with no edge or limit? Or is there some kind of cosmic boundary, a point beyond which space simply doesn't exist? One of the central challenges in answering this question lies in the fact that we can't see the entire universe. Our observations are limited by the speed of light, which means we can only see as far as light has had time to travel since the beginning of the universe. This is known as the observable universe, and it represents the part of the cosmos that is visible to us, given the finite speed at which light travels. Beyond that, the universe extends far beyond our reach, and we have no direct evidence of what lies beyond. The observable universe is vast, about 93 billion light years in diameter, and it's expanding constantly. But does this mean that the universe itself is infinite, or is there a limit to its size, a point beyond which there is nothing? The expansion of the universe adds another layer of complexity to this question. According to the Big Bang Theory, the universe began as a singularity, a point of infinite density and heat, and then began expanding. This expansion continues today, with galaxies moving away from each other as space itself stretches. But if the universe is expanding, does that imply it has an edge, or is the expansion happening in all directions, leading to an infinite universe? One possible answer to this question comes from the concept of curvature. In cosmology, there are three basic possibilities for the shape of the universe. It could be flat, open, or closed. If the universe is flat, it means that it extends infinitely in all directions, with no edge or boundary. If the universe is open, it means that it could continue expanding forever, but it might not be infinite. It might have a shape that wraps around on itself, like a saddle, and if the universe is closed, it could mean that space is curved bulk on itself, like the surface of a sphere with no true edge but a finite volume. The shape and size of the universe are still very much up for debate. Current observations suggest that the universe is flat to a very high degree of accuracy. This means that, according to our current understanding, the universe could be infinite in extent. But the idea of an infinite universe is difficult to grasp. How could something go on forever without any kind of boundary? If the universe is infinite, does it mean that there's an infinite number of stars, planets, and galaxies? Does it mean that anything that could possibly happen has already happened somewhere in the vast expanse of the universe? One of the most mind bending consequences of an infinite universe is the idea of parallel universes, or the multiverse. If the universe is truly infinite, then it's possible that there are regions of space that are so far away that we'll never be able to observe them. But if the universe is infinite, then the same laws of physics and the same probabilities apply everywhere. This means that there could be an infinite number of other regions of space where conditions are similar to ours, where stars form, planets orbit, and even life evolves. In fact, there could be an infinite number of versions of you living in different parts of the universe, making different choices, and living out different lives. The concept of an infinite universe and the possibility of parallel universes stretches our imagination and challenges our understanding of reality. If the universe is infinite, then everything that can happen will happen, again and again, in countless variations. Every possible outcome, every possibility, every choice would be realized somewhere in the vastness of space. If we live in an infinite universe, then every event that's ever happened and every event that ever could happen is already unfolding somewhere else right now. This raises a whole new set of questions. If everything that can happen will happen, does that mean we have no free will? Or are we simply following a script that's already been written in the infinite expanse of space? But what if the universe isn't infinite? What if there is an edge, a boundary to everything we see? What would that mean for our understanding of existence? If there is a limit to the universe, what lies beyond that limit? Is there a wall, a barrier, beyond which we can never go? Or does the edge of the universe mark the boundary between what we can know and what we can never understand? This idea of a finite universe presents its own set of challenges. If the universe has an edge, then how did it come into being? What was there before the universe began? And if the universe is finite, what happens when it reaches the edge? Does space stop, or does it curve back on itself in some way? These are questions that remain unanswered, and they may never be answered, at least not in our lifetime. As we look out into the vastness of space, we're left with more questions than answers. Is the universe truly infinite, or does it have an edge? Are we truly part of an infinite expanse of space, or are we simply living in a small corner of the cosmos, unaware of the larger reality that exists beyond our perception? The truth is, we don't know. The universe is so vast, so complex, and so beyond our understanding that it's impossible to say for sure. What we do know is that the search for answers continues. And whether the universe is infinite or finite, whether it has an edge or stretches endlessly into the unknown, we will continue to look up at the stars and ask the same question: what is out there? So next time you find yourself staring up at the night sky, wondering if the universe is truly infinite or if it has a boundary, take a moment to reflect on the mystery of it all. Maybe, just maybe, The real beauty of the universe lies not in the answers we find, but in the questions we ask, and in the infinite possibilities that those questions open up. What is time, really? Time is one of the most fundamental elements of our experience. It governs our lives, regulates our routines, and gives structure to everything we do. But when we stop and think about it, time becomes one of the most mysterious concepts. We measure it, we track it, we feel it passing, but do we truly understand what it is? Is time a constant force that moves us forward, or is it just an illusion, a construct of our perception? Some argue that time is a physical dimension, like space, one that exists independently of us and continues regardless of our awareness. Others suggest that time is purely subjective, a mental phenomenon that we experience based on our sensory input and cognitive processes. How can something as fundamental as time be so elusive? And what happens to our understanding of reality if we change how we think about time? Let's begin with the classical view of time. Time is often depicted as a river, unfolding, moving from the past to the present, and then into the future. This concept of time is linear, a constant progression forward. We experience it as a series of moments, each one fleeting and disappearing as soon as it arrives. This view, rooted in ancient philosophy and supported by Newtonian physics, holds that time is a fixed entity. It ticks away regardless of our actions and moves in one direction, forward. This linear view of time is deeply ingrained in how we live. We use clocks to measure time. We divide it into seconds, minutes, hours, days, and years. We build our lives around this constant rhythm, organizing our activities, work, and rest around it. But what if time isn't as constant and unchanging as we believe? What if our perception of time is not an accurate reflection of how time truly operates? This is where the theory of relativity comes in. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity introduced a new, revolutionary idea. Time is not fixed. It can change depending on how fast you're moving and how much gravity is present. Time, in this view, becomes fluid and malleable, stretching and contracting based on the circumstances of the observer. Einstein's special relativity, for example, showed that the faster you move, the slower time moves for you relative to someone at rest. This phenomenon, known as time dilation, means that if you were to travel at near the speed of light, you would experience time differently than someone who is stationary. For you, time would seem to slow down, while for the person at rest, time would continue at its usual pace. If you traveled on a spaceship near light speed and returned to Earth, you would find that less time had passed for you than for everyone else, perhaps even decades or centuries. This was a radical shift in how we view time. No longer was time a simple, constant flow from past to future. Instead, it became part of the fabric of space itself, interwoven with space to form space-time. Time could bend, warp, and stretch depending on the conditions. This understanding of time was further deepened by Einstein's general theory of relativity, which demonstrated that massive objects like planets and stars bend the very fabric of space-time, causing time to move slower the closer you are to them. This is why time moves slightly faster on a mountain than at sea level. It's due to the weaker gravitational pull at higher altitudes. If time can be so deeply influenced by speed and gravity, then what does that mean for our everyday experience of it? Time, in this sense, is not the objective, unchanging force we once thought it to be. It's fluid, dependent on the observer, and interconnected with the physical structure of the universe itself. But even with this new understanding, we still face the question, what is time really? This leads us into more philosophical questions. In daily life, we experience time in a very personal way. Time feels slow when we're bored or waiting for something exciting, and it feels like it flies by when we're having fun or engrossed in an activity. Have you ever found that time seems to pass differently depending on your emotional state or mental focus? This subjective feeling of time's passage is something that science has tried to explain, but it still remains one of the more mysterious aspects of time. One possible explanation for this discrepancy comes from the way our brains process information. When we're focused and engaged, we take in more information in a given period of time, which makes that time feel longer in retrospect. But when we're not paying attention, when we're distracted or bored, our brain processes less information and time seems to fly by. Our subjective experience of time doesn't necessarily match up with the objective, measurable time that ticks away on the clock. And then there's the way time is experienced in different cultures. Many ancient civilizations had their own understanding of time, one that didn't always align with our modern view. For example, some cultures saw time as cyclical, not linear. They believed that time was like a wheel, constantly turning in repetitive cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. In many indigenous cultures, time is not something that is measured by the clock, but something that is felt and experienced in relation to the natural world, the seasons, the sun, the moon, and the rhythms of life itself. In modern society, however, we've become so fixated on the measurement of time that it often feels like we've lost touch with this more organic, cyclical sense of time. We schedule our lives around precise increments, measuring every minute, dividing our days into a series of tasks and obligations. But in doing so, we've also created a disconnect from the natural flow of time, an awareness of time that moves beyond the clock, beyond the calendar, to something deeper and more inherent. Philosophers, too, have long grappled with the nature of time. For some, time is a fundamental aspect of existence, a feature of the universe that exists independently of human perception. For others, like Immanuel Kant, time is a construct of the human mind, a lens through which we interpret our experiences. Kant argued that time doesn't exist outside of our minds. It's a tool that helps us organize our perceptions and experiences. In this view, time is not something that exists objectively in the universe, but something that we impose on the world in order to make sense of it. If time is, as Kant suggested, a product of the mind, then it would follow that our perception of time could change depending on how we engage with the world. Could it be that our experience of time is simply a reflection of how we interact with the universe? What happens when we break free from the constraints of time as we know it? Could time be something that we can learn to manipulate, just as we can manipulate space through the theory of relativity? This brings us to one of the most profound mysteries about time. Does time have a beginning, and will it have an end? Some physicists have suggested that time, along with space, began with the Big Bang, approximately 13.8 billion years ago. Before that moment, time as we know it didn't exist. The idea of before the Big Bang is meaningless because there was no time, no past, no future, only the present in its purest, most infinite form. And while the universe continues to expand, some theories suggest that time itself could eventually come to an end. Whether through the eventual collapse of the universe, the heat death of all matter, or the dissolution of space time itself, the end of time is a concept that remains both a scientific and philosophical enigma. In the end, what is time? Is it an objective force that exists independently of us, a linear progression from past to future? Or is it a mental construct shaped by our perception and interaction with the world? Time is one of the most elusive and mysterious aspects of reality, a concept that is at once both personal and universal, both measurable and immeasurable. We may never fully understand time, but the search for its true nature is what makes it so fascinating. And perhaps the most profound realization is that while we cannot control time, we are constantly living within it, experiencing it, shaping it, and being shaped by it. What if you could meet your future self, but it would destroy the reality you know? Imagine for a moment that you're standing in front of yourself, your future self, the person you will become in the years to come. It's a surreal thought, right? After all, we spend so much of our lives thinking about who we might be, where we'll be, and what we'll have accomplished, yet rarely do we actually get a glimpse into that future. But what if one day it was possible? What if you could step into a moment where the lines between time and self blurred and you could meet the person you're destined to become? At first, the idea seems thrilling. To meet your future self would be to glimpse the life you've worked toward, the person you could grow into, the culmination of all your dreams and efforts. It's the ultimate moment of self discovery, a chance to find out what you might look like when all the choices you make today come to fruition. Would you be happy with the future you see? Would your future self be proud of what you've become? The answers are as tantalizing as they are terrifying. But then there's another question. What would happen if you met your future self? What if it wasn't just a moment of clarity, but one that fundamentally altered everything you know? What if, in meeting that future version of yourself, the very fabric of your reality began to unravel? You see, time is fragile. We often think of it as linear, with a clear past, present, and future. But what if time is more fluid than we realize? What if every moment is interconnected and the act of meeting your future self causes a ripple effect that changes everything about your life, about your reality? In some interpretations of time, meeting your future self could create a paradox, a breach in the timeline. If you were to meet yourself from the future, it could disrupt the events that were meant to unfold, creating an alternate reality, a branch off the timeline where the original version of your life no longer exists. Essentially, you'd be colliding with your own existence in a way that could change the future irrevocably. The future you see may no longer be the future that awaits you, and as a result, the present you know could be destroyed, replaced by something entirely different. Think about it this way. Imagine you meet your future self and learn something significant, something that changes your entire perspective on life. Maybe you discover that you've made a mistake in your life that leads to something catastrophic, or perhaps you see the consequences of your current choices in ways that you never imagined. Would this knowledge change you? Could it alter the course of your life so drastically that the path you've been on ceases to exist? If so, what happens to the reality you're living in now? Does it disappear, replaced by a new set of possibilities, a new version of your existence? In some versions of time travel theory, this is called the butterfly effect. The idea that a small change in the past or future can have disproportionate, far reaching consequences. Meeting your future self and gaining knowledge of your destiny could send ripples throughout your timeline, altering decisions, actions, and even the people you encounter. In essence, by meeting your future self, you could inadvertently erase the person you were supposed to be, as well as the life you were supposed to lead. The implications of this idea are staggering. What if everything you know, everything you've experienced up until this point, is just one version of events, one reality that exists only because you haven't yet encountered the full picture? If you were to meet your future self, would that be the moment that creates a split in time, spawning a new reality that you now have to navigate? Would you even recognize the life you once had? This question raises deeper philosophical and psychological considerations. If meeting your future self would destroy the reality you know, would you still want to meet them? Would you choose to change the course of your life, knowing that the moment you encounter your future self, everything familiar to you, the relationships, the experiences, the identity you've built, could vanish? The future may seem like a mystery we all want to unravel, but what if some mysteries are better left unsolved? There's also the question of identity. Who are you really? Are you the person you are today, or are you already shaped by the future? If your future self could come to you with all the wisdom and experience of the years to come, would they still be you? Or would they be someone else, someone fundamentally changed by time, by the choices they've made? And if you change who you are today, by meeting your future self, or by gaining the knowledge that could alter your path, does that mean the future you see is no longer truly yours? Are you the author of your own story, or are you simply playing a role in a script that has already been written? Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of this concept is the potential consequences on the people around you. Imagine meeting your future self and discovering something about your future relationships, about the people you love or the people who love you. Would this knowledge change your behavior toward them? Would you take actions that ultimately change the relationships you have in the present, knowing that your future self has experienced them differently? Could this knowledge turn your world upside down, creating a distortion in the very people and connections you cherish? There's also a deeper existential question lurking behind this thought experiment. What is the meaning of life if our future selves can exist, but we can never meet them without destroying the reality we know? Is life simply a series of decisions that shape an inevitable path, or do we have true agency over our futures? Meeting your future self could suggest that everything is already predetermined, that our actions are simply a part of a larger, unchangeable design. But if meeting your future self would obliterate the life you currently know, does that mean that reality is not so fixed after all? Is it possible that by stepping into that future, you would unlock the ultimate freedom, the freedom to choose a new path, a new version of yourself, one that could fundamentally change everything? This raises the question, is it worth meeting your future self if it means destroying everything you know? Would you sacrifice your present life for the chance to see what's ahead, knowing that doing so might alter everything in ways you can't predict or control? The answer, of course, depends on your perspective, on your willingness to face the unknown, and your desire for knowledge, even at the cost of everything familiar. Maybe, just maybe, there's a reason why we can't meet our future selves. Perhaps the universe, or the nature of time itself, is protecting us from that knowledge, keeping us on the path we're meant to follow without the burden of knowing too much. Or maybe the journey is the destination, and it's not the future we need to see, but the present we need to live fully. So, next time you wonder what the future holds, ask yourself, would you really want to know? And if you had the chance to meet your future self, would you take it, even if it meant sacrificing the reality you know? Is the universe a simulation? It's a question that seems more fitting for a science fiction novel than a philosophical debate. Yet, it's a question that's gaining traction in scientific and philosophical circles. The idea that everything we experience, the world around us, the people we know, the very fabric of reality itself, could be nothing more than a sophisticated simulation, an elaborate virtual reality created by some unknown force, has fascinated thinkers for decades. But is it possible? Could our universe, with all its complexity, beauty, and mystery, be nothing more than a highly advanced simulation running on a supercomputer somewhere, created by beings far more intelligent than we can imagine? It sounds absurd at first, doesn't it? The idea that everything we see and touch is just a computer program, a set of ones and zeros designed to trick us into thinking it's real. But the more we think about it, the more intriguing the idea becomes. After all, we've already created virtual realities, simulations that feel incredibly real to the people experiencing them. Video games, virtual worlds, artificial intelligence, they've all advanced to the point where they can create immersive environments that we can interact with that feel almost indistinguishable from reality. If we can do that, what's to say that a more advanced civilization couldn't create a simulation that's even more convincing, one that encompasses an entire universe? Now, let's take a step back and consider the scale of it all. The universe we live in is vast, unfathomably so. We live on a tiny speck of dust in an ever expanding cosmos, surrounded by billions of galaxies, each filled with billions of stars. The laws of physics, the forces that govern everything from the smallest particle to the largest galaxy, are incredibly precise. And yet, despite all of this, we are still left with so many unanswered questions. Where did the universe come from? What is the true nature of space and time? What is consciousness, and how does it emerge from the physical brain? If we accept the possibility that we could create simulations, then could it be possible that we are living in one ourselves? Could our entire existence, the stars, the planets, the very atoms that make up our bodies, be part of an advanced simulation running on a computer designed by an intelligence far beyond our own. Some of the world's leading thinkers have argued that the chances are high that we are living in a simulation. The most famous of these is the philosopher Nick Bostrom, who proposed what's known as the simulation hypothesis. According to Bostrom, there are three possibilities. One, that advanced civilizations will never reach a point where they can create realistic simulations of the universe. Two, that such civilizations would choose not to create these simulations. Or three, that we are almost certainly living in a simulation. If you follow this line of reasoning, the odds that we are living in the base reality, the original universe, are exceedingly low. In other words, if future civilizations are capable of creating simulations, they will likely run billions of them. And if that's the case, the number of simulated realities would vastly outnumber the number of base realities, making it statistically likely that we are living in a simulation ourselves. It's a fascinating argument, but it doesn't stop there. Some scientists believe that evidence of our simulated existence could be found in the very fabric of reality itself. The way particles behave, the strange properties of quantum mechanics. Could these be clues, hints that we're living in a simulation? Take, for example, the concept of quantum entanglement, where two particles become connected, instantaneously affecting each other, no matter how far apart they are. This phenomenon seems to defy the laws of physics as we understand them, suggesting that there might be something deeper at work, something beyond our current comprehension. What if, instead of being real in the traditional sense, the universe is simply a projection, a highly complex and convincing simulation that operates under rules we don't fully understand? What if the laws of physics, the constants that govern everything from the speed of light to the force of gravity, are simply programmed instructions, part of the code that runs the simulation? Could it be that everything we experience, every moment, every interaction, every thought, is just part of a vast program, one that is designed to feel as real as possible, but is ultimately just a construct, a set of simulated events unfolding in a digital space? But if we are living in a simulation, who or what created it? Who is running the program? Some have suggested that an advanced civilization, perhaps far more advanced than ours, created the simulation as an experiment to study the development of consciousness or to explore the evolution of intelligent life. Others have speculated that the creators of the simulation might be us, or at least our descendants, running simulations of the past in order to understand the history of their own civilization. The possibilities are endless, and the more we think about them, the more the line between reality and simulation begins to blur. Now, consider this. If we are living in a simulation, what does that mean for us? Does it change the way we live our lives? Does it mean that nothing we do is real, that our actions don't matter? Some might argue that it doesn't matter whether we're in a simulation or not. After all, if the simulation is real to us, then it's as real as anything else. The experiences we have, the relationships we form, the emotions we feel, these are all real in the sense that they are meaningful to us. Whether they are part of a simulation or part of a base reality doesn't change the fact that we experience them. On the other hand, if we are in a simulation, what does that say about our purpose? Are we merely characters in someone else's game, living out a preordained story? Are we simply simulations, our lives programmed by an intelligence that controls our every move, our every thought? Or is there something more, something that exists beyond the simulation, something that we have yet to understand? Perhaps, in the end, the most profound question is not whether we are in a simulation, but what it means to live in a simulation. If we are the product of a program, if our thoughts, actions, and experiences are part of a digital construct, does that make us any less real? Do we lose our sense of meaning, our sense of purpose, just because we exist in a simulated world? Or is meaning something we create, regardless of where or how we exist? What if we've been in contact with aliens for centuries, but they've never been interested in us? The idea of alien life is one that has captivated the human imagination for as long as we've gazed up at the stars. For decades, we've wondered whether we're alone in the universe or whether other forms of life, more advanced or different from us, might exist somewhere out there. The possibility of contact with extraterrestrial beings raises many exciting yet unsettling questions. But what if we've been wrong about the nature of that contact? What if aliens have been aware of us all along, but they've simply never shown any interest in us? Imagine for a moment that we've been surrounded by aliens for centuries, even millennia, and we've never known it. Not because they're hiding from us or because they haven't made contact, but because they've simply never bothered to engage with us. What if we are a fleeting, insignificant blip in the grand scale of the universe, too primitive, too unremarkable to capture the attention of beings who are far beyond our understanding? It's a humbling thought. For so long, humanity has wondered about alien life, fixating on the idea that we are either actively being watched, visited, or studied by extraterrestrials. Our books, movies, and even scientific searches are filled with the hope or the fear that one day we'll encounter a race of aliens who will either welcome us as equals or, at worst, destroy us. But what if that's not the case at all? What if the aliens, if they exist, simply don't care? Let's consider the vastness of the universe. Our planet is a tiny speck in the grand expanse of space, orbiting a mediocre star in a galaxy filled with billions of others. The Milky Way alone contains over 100 billion stars, and our galaxy is just one of the estimated 2 trillion galaxies that make up the observable universe. Within this staggering scale, it's possible that intelligent life exists elsewhere, but it's also possible that life forms far more advanced than us are so distant, so different, that they haven't even noticed us, let alone feel any need to engage with us. This idea challenges the assumption that we are the most important beings in the universe. For centuries, we've placed ourselves at the center of existence, believing that alien life, if it existed, would be as concerned with us as we are with them. We imagine encounters with technologically superior civilizations who might offer us their knowledge, share their advanced technology, or even explore the possibility of some kind of interstellar alliance. But what if we're simply too insignificant in the cosmic scale to matter? What if aliens see us as little more than a curiosity, an odd, primitive species stumbling through the early stages of civilization? What if they have encountered countless other worlds, perhaps even civilizations far more advanced than ours, and our planet is just another unremarkable stop on their long journey through the stars? In this scenario, the very fact that we've never been given more than a passing glance could be the greatest indication of how insignificant we really are in the grand scheme of the universe. But let's take this even further. What if the aliens have been here all along, observing us, but simply don't find us worth their time? They may have noticed our existence, perhaps even monitored our progress as a species, but ultimately, they have no interest in interacting with us. They may understand that we're still struggling with basic issues like war, inequality, and environmental destruction, issues that they may have long ago overcome, or they may simply find us too chaotic, too primitive to be of any interest. To them, we could be nothing more than a fleeting moment in their long lives, something to observe and perhaps record, but nothing more. In fact, there's a certain logic to this idea. If aliens are as advanced as we imagine them to be, then perhaps they've reached a point where they no longer see the need to make contact with less developed civilizations. They might see us in the same way that we view insects, or perhaps even bacteria. We don't seek to interact with every organism we encounter. Sometimes we simply let them live, watching from a distance, uninterested in engaging with them unless they directly affect us. If this is the case, it changes the way we think about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI. For decades, we've been listening for signals from aliens, hoping to receive a message to make contact. We've sent our own signals into space, asking the universe to answer. But what if the answer we're waiting for is not a message or a visit, but complete indifference? What if the aliens we've been searching for are simply ignoring us, or worse, haven't even noticed our attempts to communicate? The silence of the cosmos could be the loudest message of all, that we are insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe. And yet, this thought also raises an uncomfortable truth. If we are so insignificant, why have we invested so much time and energy in searching for extraterrestrial life? What does it say about us as a species that we place so much hope in the idea that someone out there might care about us? Are we so desperate for validation, so eager to prove that we matter, that we have built our search for aliens around the idea that they will come to our rescue or offer us some kind of enlightenment? This sense of cosmic loneliness is deeply unsettling. It challenges our belief in our own importance and forces us to confront the possibility that we might not be as central to the universe as we've always imagined. But in some ways, this realization can be freeing. It forces us to take responsibility for our own fate, to acknowledge that if we want to survive and thrive as a species, we must do so on our own. The universe might not care about us, and that's okay. We are the architects of our own future, and whether we are watched by aliens or left alone in the vast emptiness, it's up to us to make the most of the time we have. But let's entertain the idea for a moment that just maybe we aren't alone, and the aliens have been here all along, just not in the way we expected. Perhaps they've been observing us, quietly, without interference, watching as we slowly grow and evolve. And perhaps in time, we'll prove ourselves worthy of their attention. But for now, we remain in the dark, caught in the silence of the universe, with no answer, no sign, and no certainty of who, If anyone is watching, maybe that's how it's always been. The question remains, what if we've been in contact with aliens for centuries, but they've never been interested in us? Perhaps that's the most unsettling thought of all. Not that we are alone, but that we've never mattered enough to anyone but ourselves. And in the end, maybe that's the most profound lesson we can learn, that our worth is not defined by others, by aliens, or by any force outside of ourselves. Our worth is something we must create for ourselves in the here and now. So, as you go about your day, take a moment to look up at the stars and wonder, could we be nothing more than a passing thought in the vast mind of the cosmos? Are we truly alone, or have we been here all along, just waiting to be seen?